All right.
Okay, I'm going to call the meeting to order. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the February 7th workshop meeting of the Howell Township Mayor and Council. Mr. Davis, would you please read the opening statement and, in addition, immediately call the roll?
Let the minutes reflect that adequate notice of the holding of this workshop meeting of the Howell Township Council was provided for in the following manner. By the posting of copies of said notice upon the bulletin board in the Township Municipal Building on December 21st, 2005, and by the faxing of copies of said notice to the Asbury Park Press, Tri-Town News, and Star Ledger for publication on December 21st, 2005, and by the filing of a copy of said form of notice in the Township Clerk's office on December 21st, 2005. The public will be allowed to attend this meeting and will be allowed to participate pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Law. The public is reminded that civility and decorum will be maintained during the meeting. Any contracts awarded at this meeting or between now and the next meeting will be required to comply with the requirements of the Public Laws 1975, Chapter 127, NJAC 17:27.
Any password?
Roll call, please.
In accordance with the Fire Prevention Code, be advised that this facility is designed with 3 emergency exits for your safety. The locations are as follows. Upon exiting the meeting room to the rear, they are to immediate left and immediate right, and at the front of the meeting room at the left of the dais. Furthermore, smoking is not permitted in a municipal building. Please take note that this meeting is being videotaped for future broadcast on Howell Township TV 77.
Roll call, Mr. Mullabay.
Here.
Mr. Showmaker.
Present.
Mr. Tabasco.
Present.
Mr. Walsh.
Here.
Mayor DeBella.
Here. Okay, we're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance when we come back after executive session. Mr. Davis, I do believe we have reason for executive session.
Yes, sir.
Would you please read the appropriate statement?
Whereas Title 10, Chapter 4, Section 13 of the New Jersey Revised Statutes require that the public shall not be excluded from any meetings of a public body unless a resolution authorizing such exclusion is adopted at a public meeting, and whereas the Township Council of the Township of Howell has determined that such a closed meeting is required to discuss certain matters which are exempted from consideration with the public in attendance under New Jersey Revised Statutes 10:4-12, namely contract negotiations, litigation, and acquisition of property. Now therefore be it resolved by the Township Council of the Township of Howell that the public shall be excluded from the next portion of this meeting, and that the Township Council will reconvene in public session thereafter. Be it further resolved that minutes will be kept of the meeting in closed session, and the time and the circumstances under which the discussion conducted in closed session can be disclosed to the public cannot be determined at this time. Need a motion and second.
We need a motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Mullabay.
Yes.
Mrs. Showmaker.
Yes.
Mr. Tabasco.
Aye.
Mr. Walsh.
Yes.
Mayor DeBella.
Yes. All right, for the benefit of the public, we expect to be out of executive session by about 8:15. Thank you. I'm going to reconvene the meeting. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your indulgence with our tardiness coming out of executive session. I'd ask that everyone please rise for a Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd ask that everyone please remain standing in silent observation and thought of those troops defending this country here and across the globe. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Davis, back to our agenda. We've completed executive session. We're going to go to reports of township officials. We'll start tonight with Mr. Malabe.
Mr. Mayor, due to the time, I'm going to pass on comment tonight.
Okay. Mr. Tabasco.
I just have one, and that is that I got a letter from Cheryl Gambarella. I'm the liaison to the EDC, and she unfortunately has to resign. So Penny Wallman, please get that on to Marianne San Clemente that Cheryl Gambarella has to resign from the EDC. So now we now have one vacancy.
Anything else?
I'll pass on everything else.
Mr. Walsh?
I did get a phone call from a young lady that wanted to speak about Patterson Drive. Miss Nunziata says she can't ride her bicycle on Patterson Drive because it needs to be fixed. Could you look into that for us?
Certainly can.
Anything else, Mr. Walsh?
Not at this time, Mayor.
Mr. Showmaker?
Mayor, I had looking for, we had so many papers tonight. One of the things I wanted to make a comment on is that the signs were, actually, we got a note saying the signs were going up down in, here it is, down
Porter and Vienna.
on Porter.
Yes.
So I'm glad to hear.
Porter and Vienna.
That they were going up. And I saw we got our note on the adult store ordinance. And I think we've addressed that, correct? Stating that we are going to ask for a refund and move forward on that?
Yes.
We gave Mr. Davis
Okay.
that direction in the contracts.
Mr. Gannon, I will let you know that unfortunately I did not have an opportunity. I had a call from Bruce, your neighbor, Mrs. Crummins, in regards to the Lackey property. And I myself went out there probably 2 or 3 weeks ago. It's worse now than it has been for a long time, and I want to make sure that we're following up on that. I think that we need to move forward with maybe possible arrest. I'm not sure where we need to go with this, but we need to have closure on this issue.
I certainly don't disagree, but it's really a legal matter at this point as to how we proceed.
Well, I think we need to proceed down the strong road.
Mr. Gannon, would you please give us the update? I know Mr. Corrigan of your office has been working on this, and I guess based on where we're at now, what are the next legal steps?
As we speak, we have been in contact with the code enforcement, accumulating information. I'm not sure if he got on the property, but he was doing an investigation, and then we're going to certainly have to proceed back to court seeking contempt violations.
I implore you, I hope that when I leave here in 3 more years or 2, whenever it is I'm going, that we have closure for this, because, this is, since I came into office in January, the very first year, on my first term around, we've been pursuing this, and it just doesn't seem like there is an end to the nightmare.
Unfortunately, it's in the court hands and the due process, and we had some cleanup, which I think was a positive step, but then it appears that either there's been a relocation of some of the other debris or it's been brought back on, but certainly we're going to have to bring it to the court's attention and ask for the strongest punishment possible.
Well, I'm going to tell you the thing that annoys me the most is, and I've asked it every time we talk about this, and I've yet to this very day, on record, have ever received any receipts for any dumping fees or tipping fees or whatever he was required to give us. Yet to this day have I seen a receipt. So I don't understand that. That's something that I don't
Quite frankly, I
understand.
don't either.
And Mayor, given the lateness of the hour, I will leave it at that.
All right. I mean, it is our workshop, so I have a couple of brief things I need to bring to the council's attention. I received a letter from Mr. Kelly, who is the clerk of the Board of Fire Commissioners, District Number 4. And the Board of Commissioners has asked, and I'm going to pass this on to you, Mr. Davis, that as it relates to the issue of speed humps and traffic calming measures, that we include representation, obviously, from the fire service as we talk about how those particular devices need to be examined as it relates to responses in an emergency crisis. So I'm going to pass this letter down and ask that we please include them in the discussions through Mr. Nunziato's office. The next is we all received a copy from Judge Kaplan regarding a new piece of legislation that then Governor Cody had signed into law, which increases the amount of fines that can be levied for what are blatant violations, according to his memorandum, with respect to vehicle-related issues. I know we're going to talk about this later, but I do want to pass this down. The judge's memorandum to us, dated January 9, we just have not had a chance to workshop this, was that we should, he says here, I strongly urge the Mayor and Council enact this new ordinance so that we can effectuate the change in the law. I'm going to similarly please pass that down for our discussion as we're talking about changes with regard to ordinances and dealing with traffic issues. The other is, I had asked that we look into the situation with the property commonly known as the Pineview Grocery Store on Route 9. And under the guise that the building is in terrible cosmetic appearance, it looks as if it's going to collapse. I've driven by it. I got out of my car and looked at it. According to Mr. Chet Phillips of our construction office, he found that the roof is falling in on the grocery store. There's some bungalows behind it. They're also falling down, and they have garbage in them. He's going to check on the owners and notify them for the unsafe structures. He'll keep us posted. That building needs to be demolished. So what do we need to do that?
Well, there is a process that has to be followed, and that's what Mr. Phillips is doing. Before we can demolish them, you have to give the owner of the property the opportunity to do it after he's been noticed.
So where in the timeline are we? I mean, he
In the
indicates
very-
he's going to reach out to him, so
Yes.
what do we send him, a certified letter? Do we?
I'm not sure how Mr. Phillips reached out for him at this point. However, if there is a failure to respond or the owner is disinterested, then there is a statutory process that we can follow. And we'll have to conduct a hearing and so forth and so on.
All right, could you perhaps get us maybe by the end of the week some note to file update? Because I'm beginning to field calls from residents that live actually in the development where the deputy mayor lives, that they pass that with great frequency and they see it all the time, and it's obviously it's a dangerous structure. So if you can get us any update on
Sure.
Where we are relative to that.
Not a problem.
The last item that I need to bring up tonight related to some other correspondence is I've spoken to several business owners in town, some of whom are in the grocer business. There's a significant concern about Walmart and their expansion into the grocery business, and how Walmart comes in and in fairly short order demolishes any of the competition and literally puts businesses and suppliers out of business. And so there is a concern that Walmart could potentially look to put in one of these superstores in our municipality, and what would that do to other businesses with their sheer size? And apparently, in Carteret, New Jersey, they passed an ordinance that limits any single retail store to 125,000 square feet, that it not be permitted in their highway zones. So in other words, it would be impossible for one of those super stores to be built in our municipality if we were to consider passing something.
Someone's phone is on.
Yeah, let me just ask a general service announcement. If you have a cell phone, it interferes sometimes with our PA system, so if you'd be so kind as to turn it off, we would appreciate it. So I would like us to consider this and workshop it. I don't expect us to dialogue it tonight, but I'm going to pass this down. Mr. Davis, if you'd please have a copy of that distributed to the rest of the governing body, and we can workshop it.
I'll add one comment to that, and that the current Walmart actually does already have a grocery section. Now, it's not a monster grocery section, but there is a superstore opening on 537 now, right off of Route 9 in Freehold, where the new Sam's is going. That's due to have its grand opening very shortly. So some people from Howell may, in the northern part of Howell anyway, may already go to a Walmart superstore.
Well, as a practical matter, you have other department-level stores that also sell food, such as Target and Kmart. They all sell food.
Yeah, I mean, the big issue from the business person's perspective in our community, and I've heard this in other communities, particularly if you're an A&P, if you are a ShopRite, Food Town, what have you, it is an impossibility apparently for you to compete with these giant super Walmart stores. And I'm all for free enterprise and free trade and what have you, but it appears as if these businesses have literally put other businesses out of business. I'm not, quite frankly, a huge fan of Walmart, quite frankly, but in any event, I'd like us to consider it so that we can at least protect those businesses that we have.
Where's that?
And I think that's all that I have under reports. Was there anything else? You had something else, Michelle? Go ahead, you can read it. Go ahead.
I just want to remind everyone, and this is on the website, this will go on the website, the change in the recycling. Just,
It is a change, let's be clear, not to confuse anybody.
no, it's
The
on our
vendor is
curbside.
changed.
Yeah, plus, and the days are going to change, I think.
We put out to bid, as required by law, the business of the firm that handles the pickup of recycling glass, aluminum, and newspaper, which is our curbside pickup, and a different contractor was awarded the business. Services remain identical. This has been posted on the Township website. Effective March 1, a new company will be picking up the waste. And again, there's no difference in service. It's just that on a low bid situation, someone came in and was able to provide those services to the municipality. All the same items are to be picked up. There's no change, but the truck might look different from the one that has been in your neighborhoods perhaps most recently. Was there anything else under reports? Mr. Davis, do you have anything to report, sir?
No, sir, not at this time.
All right, then let's get on to consent agenda items. Remember, this is a workshop, so we only need to take action tonight on those items that are marked for action. So why don't we take a moment and go through these? We also have in front of us a note that does tell us those items for action tonight. There's a separate sheet.
Oh, yeah, okay, more.
9B, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 3, 4, and 5. Those are the consent agenda resolution items to be acted on.
Are they on?
Is there anything else, Mr. Davis,
On the agenda now?
on items for action tonight?
Yeah, that's what we're dealing with.
No, sir, you have,
Who knows?
you have the list in front of you, 9B 20 through 31 for action tonight.
Yeah, it's actually through 35.
35, I'm sorry, and the motions.
Okay, any questions from members of the council on any of the resolution items for action this evening?
Mr. Mayor, can we get a separate vote on 9C5?
On 9C5, sure.
And also, I believe, a separate vote on 9B 27.
Separate
Yes.
vote on 9B27, hold on.
Yeah,
Yes.
correct.
Now, Mayor, before you move into these action items, I would recommend that we possibly go through the rest of the agenda, or do you want to do the action items up front?
Is there any reason why we
We have 2 public hearings on ordinances. Perhaps doing the consent, the resolutions and the motions first might be advisable.
here, you know what we'll do? We'll do a public hearing right now on only those items, 9B20 through 35, in the event anyone has any comments. But before we do that, I want to follow up on what Mr. Malave asked, which is on 9C5, what kind of latitude do we have, Mr. Gannon, through you, with respect to...
We ask the same question
we
every
ask
year.
this
It's
question
First
every time it comes up, but
First Amendment, right?
is there anything we can do to prevent granting that coin-operated game?
Not on the basis of what you think you can do. I think the location is to be regulated to a certain extent, which I think we'll be hopefully getting to. But based on the reviews and the inspections that were done by the municipal appropriate officials, they had no objection with at least with regard to the items that they inspect, such as health, safety, and welfare items.
So the answer is, we don't have a choice but to approve this.
The answer hasn't changed since the last time you asked me the question.
Every year, yeah. Fourth time.
All right, before we open this up for comments on those items, anyone else? Mr. Walsh, any comments on 9B20 to 35?
I think there's some young children here interested in 9B27.
Okay. Ms. Showmaker, anything? Mr. DeBasco? Mr. Milano? Okay, I'm going to open up the meeting to the public for comments and questions specific and solely on the actionable items from 9B20 to 9B35. If anyone has any questions or comments on just those particular items, please come forward now.
While we're waiting, Mayor, I do have to comment that this sound system is absolutely driving me crazy again.
Is that mic on or off?
It's off. They're all off. It's just...
Okay. Anyone who'd like to be heard on those specific items, please come forward. You need to
Looks
come
like-
forward.
There's add-ons up
Hold
front.
on. Okay, Mr. Davis, on the public's copy of the agenda, indication is it only goes to 31. That's correct. Okay, let me read aloud. 9B32 is the award of a contract to Jersey Professional Management Corporation, $4,500 for a mayor and council goal and facilitating session. 9B33, Monmouth County Office on Aging grant, a grant to us, $27,500. 2005 temporary appropriations of $4,000. 9B35, establish a claim against maintenance bond number M332730, Louis Barbado Landscaping, Inc., Shade Tree Contract SH 2003F. Those are the add-on items that apparently are not on the public copy of the agenda. Okay.
Mayor, I did not have that sheet. I don't have that sheet in front of me either.
Do you have that sheet, Mr. Walsh?
I have it in this.
You do have that. Okay, Mr. Showmaker, you have the sheet?
Yes.
Mr. Tabasco, you have the sheet?
And I'll share with
One with the notes, Juan.
I have it now. Mr. Mayor, I'm going to request that 9B35 be put for separate vote.
Okay. All right, seeing that no one is going to be asking to be heard on those, I'm going to close the public portion on those particular items. Okay, we're going to have a separate vote on 9B27, 9B35, and 9C4.
I see 5.
9C5.
9C5, I'm sorry, 9C5. Let me say again, 9B27, 9C5, 9B35. Is there anything else we'd like to separately act on? We're waiting for you.
Well, hearing none, I would then motion that we approve those consent agenda items.
All right, so we have a motion on all items excepting. Are we not?
Yeah, Mayor, you need a motion and second to go into regular session.
Need a motion and a second to go into regular
All right,
session.
so I'll motion first that we go into regular.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any remarks? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Malavey?
Yes.
Mrs. Showmaker?
Yes.
Mr. Tabasco?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mayor DeBella?
Yes, okay. I'll entertain a motion on all items excepting 9B27, 9C5, 9B35.
So moved, Mayor.
We have a motion.
Second, Mayor.
We have a second. Are there any additional remarks? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Malavey?
Yes.
Mrs. Showmaker?
Yes.
Mr. Tabasco?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mayor DeBella?
Yes. I'll entertain a motion, please, on 9B35.
Motion to approve that claim.
Okay, we have a motion. We need a second.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second on 9B35 under remarks.
What's your remark?
Any remarks?
Just wanted to separate.
Okay? Any remarks?
Juan was the one who wanted to separate.
Okay.
Can I ask Mr. Malave a question? Why'd you separate it, Councilman Malave?
That's what it was.
I need to abstain from this vote.
Okay.
The person who was awarded this contract, I'm about to be awarded, he's a customer of mine. So,
Okay, thank you.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Malavey?
abstain?
Mrs. Showmaker?
Yes.
Mr. Tabasco?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mayor DeBella?
Yes. Entertain a motion, please, on 9C5.
I move that we pass motion 9C5.
We have a motion. We need a second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any remarks?
Yeah, just one. Again, you probably overheard us talking about it as a council a second ago, but for the people out there, this has to do with adult bookstore, obviously, which we don't necessarily want these in our town, but there are First Amendment rights, and being that they're already here, there's not much that we can do. You heard our attorney say that we would open ourselves up to litigation if we actually didn't vote to approve this tonight, so that's why we're going ahead with it.
Okay. Any additional remarks?
Just so people understand, this is for the coin-operated game.
Right.
It's not for the actual
Correct.
running of the Emporium.
For the games that are already offered.
Any additional remarks? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Malavey?
No?
Mrs. Showmaker?
Yes.
Mr. Tabasco?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
No.
Mayor DeBella?
Reluctantly and based on the law, yes. Okay, with respect to 9B27, this is a very significant appointment. I'm going to digress for a moment. For the past several weeks, the Township Council and I have been going through a process of selecting a new manager. Let me first say that we have been served quite well by Mr. Bruce Davis, who has been involved in this municipality since 1979 in a variety of capacities, and Mr. Davis will have his day in the sun, although he doesn't quite know that yet. But we are grateful for his service. At the same time, the council and I elected to move in a direction to have a separate manager different from the clerk. And so we hired a recruiting firm, an executive search and recruiting firm called New Jersey Management that assisted us in doing an exploration and review to recruit a top-flight executive. In our judgment, the manager's position in particular, because of this form of government, is the chief executive officer of a $40 million business with very significant day-to-day responsibilities. And so this is perhaps the single most important decision that the five of us may ever make in the time that we are here in office. Hiring a manager is a very, very big deal in any municipality, particularly in this one because of the form of the government we have. We interviewed more candidates than I can shake a stick out of. We went through a selection and search process, a vetting out process where we were able to review a host of candidates with different experiences. The council participated in all those interviews together. We interviewed and examined the resumes and the credentials of everyone together, and after that process, we narrowed it down to 3 finalists. During that finalist process, we asked various senior department heads to actually interview those candidates in addition to our interviews. So various department heads met with the 3 finalists, spent several hours with them. The finalists toured the town, met with the chief of police, met with other people from within the municipality, and then came back for another round of interviews with the council and I. And then we narrowed it down to 2 candidates. And then after a long deliberation, we got down to 1. And the reason I mention this is because this was a long process that we took very, very seriously. And I am pleased to say that, in my view, it was a good process for the 5 members of this governing body to go through. It was a apolitical process that was designed to find the best available person to manage this municipality. And so I'm proud to have gone through that process with my 4 colleagues. I'm convinced that the process was authentic and will demonstrate to the community that we did the right thing on behalf of the 52,000 customers that live in this municipality. And so without any additional comment, I will ask a member of the council to make a motion by name of the individual with whom we have come to consensus on.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we appoint Thomas J. Chernicki as our municipal manager for the Township of Howell. The said salary is hereby established at $97,500 per year to commence February 27th, 2006. The mayor is authorized to execute a contract with the appointee in accordance with the agreement between the parties pursuant to our ordinance that allows a non-resident as our manager and that he can maintain his non-residency.
I'll
We have a
second.
motion. We have a second. Are there any remarks from members of the council?
I have one. Joe, you spoke very eloquently there, as usual, and I have to say that I was very encouraged again by the deliberations we had as a full council. A lot of great debate, and I think we made a great decision that going forward, the town will be well represented by the manager that we did pick.
Mr. Malani?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I also was very encouraged by the process. I also want to thank the council members, Mr. Mayor, yourself. A lot of time and effort went into this, so I do want to thank you for the process. Also, I want to thank Mr. Davis, although he's going to be here for a while still, so we're going to keep pounding him for a while. But Mr. Davis knows how we all feel about him individually, and none better than him as a gentleman. I think the township, the community of Howard Township is lucky to have been able to obtain a person, in my judgment, of the credentials and the caliber of Mr. Chernicki. I think he will be a great asset to this community. I look forward to working with him, and that's all I have to say, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Walsh, do you have any comments you'd like to make?
I'd like to thank the mayor and council. It was my first. It was my first experience going back and forth over a very difficult decision with them in the back room, and It was an experience that I won't forget for a long time. I learned a lot back there. I'm not going to tell you I enjoyed every moment of it, but but it was an experience. I do think that we came up with a person who will serve the town well. And I implore all of you to rally around that person. Seemed like a fine young man that could help this town tremendously if the people around him help him to do his job. I mean, a manager can only do what the people around him help him to accomplish. Can't do it all by himself. And in the back room, we had a lot of discussions about numerous people, pros and cons, and we picked who we thought would be the best person to lead this township going forwards. And I know I'll give him 100%, and I sure hope everybody else does. This is a little bit of a tough town. I'm finding out a little bit tougher than I thought, but not too tough. You know, but it's a tough town. A lot of people with knowledge, a lot of people with different views. It's also a wonderful town to live in, and we think we picked the right gentleman to help guide us in the future. As far as Mr. Davis, it's been a short time working with you, but it's been a pleasure, and hope to see you around for years to come.
Thank you, sir.
God bless.
Mrs. Showmaker.
First, I'd like to thank Mr. Davis for his service to our township.
Thank you.
Mr. Davis has had a grueling few years since our mayor has taken seat.
We keep him busy.
And we keep him busy. So I do want to thank you for your service to the township. This has probably in 5 years been the most difficult decision for me. I think that the process was a great process. It was, as Mr. Councilman Walsh said, we had some great debate. We all want what is in the best interest of this community. I, for one, felt like if I did not pick the man that I felt would best serve our needs, it would be a disservice to all of you, the residents of Howell Township. I believe that this gentleman will serve our community, bring respect to our community. I believe that each of us as council members will be able to have an open door process where we, it's going to be a new day. It's going to be a new day. I think that it's a long time coming. With no disrespect to anybody here, we have fine employees, and I look forward to tomorrow. And if there's anything that we can do to make your first day here on February the 27th, I believe,
Right.
any easier, you have each of our numbers. We are looking forward to working with you. And I think Mr. Davis will be a wealth of knowledge to help you. And I believe he's already in the process. I've seen all the documentation come across. So welcome to our community of Howell Township. It's not as bad as people tell you. It's a beautiful community. It's a beautiful community. We welcome your family, and we look forward to this.
The only other final comments, I'm going to read aloud a portion from a statement that we will hand out tonight after the vote has been officiated, is that our incoming or anticipated manager is an experienced municipal manager, licensed professional community planner. Prior to serving in his current position as a consulting planner in Mount Laurel, New Jersey, based civil engineering and planning firm, he was township manager in East Hampton in Burlington County from 1999 to 2005. Started his municipal management career as an administrative analyst in Montville Township, then as an assistant manager in Randolph Township, both in Morris County, before his appointment in East Hampton. Holds a bachelor's degree in political science from Montclair State University and a master's degree in public administration from Keene University. He's working on a second master's degree in city and regional studies at Rutgers University's Blaustein School of Planning and Public Policy. In 1999, he was recognized by his peers with the Outstanding Young Professional Award from the New Jersey Municipal Management Association. 2004, his efforts in East Hampton led to the community receiving the New Jersey Futures Inc.'s highly sought-after Smart Futures Award. 2005, he was guest speaker at the International City County Management Association's conference in Minneapolis, Minnesota, on the subject of neighborhood-based community visioning, techniques for city managers. He's a member of the American Institute of Certified Planners and a former executive board member of the New Jersey Municipal Management Association. I'm going to ask for a roll call vote unless there's any additional comments. Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Malave?
Yes.
Mrs. Showmaker?
Yes.
Mr. Tabasco?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mayor DeBella?
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to the future Township Manager of Howell Township, Mr. Tom Zarnecki.
I'm sure it's on.
First thing you got to work on is that sound system.
First thing.
Let me assure you that in working in many municipalities that neither sound systems nor air conditioning systems work in town halls. You know what? I'm just going to speak.
Well, I have to record.
Just so it goes into recording, that's all.
Be comfortable.
All right. Well, I noticed there's a lot on the agenda, and I have two little ones with me that I want to, I know I have to get to bed, so I won't take long. But truly, about 4 months ago, I had an additional inch on my hairline that I lost through the process that these folks took me through. Let me assure you of my commitment to professional management. In due respect to the spirit that the council said that I'm going to lead this municipality, that's not true. The council leads the municipality, and we advise them and implement their policies in the most professional manner possible. I assure you of my commitment to that. I just want to tell you a quick little story because I think it's appropriate for this setting. Mark Twain was known as having a very foul mouth. He cursed all the time. And one day, he came home, and his wife was fed up with it and started cursing at him. And then she said, "How do you like it?" And he said, "My dear, you have the words, but you lack the music." The point of that is the music behind choosing the municipal manager here was really very professional. And the music to me is that it set the tone for what I'm going to be doing when I work here. So, Mayor and Council, I'd like to thank you very much for your confidence. As a fellow public servant, I'd like to thank Mr. Davis very much for his kind words today. He called me, and I look forward to working with him. He has a sterling reputation in our field, and I think we're going to be great partners. Finally, I'd like to introduce to you the people who support me, my wife, Jolynn, and my 7-year-old daughter, Sophia, and 3-year-old daughter, Anna. And this weekend, not only will we be celebrating a new job, but our 13th wedding anniversary as well.
Congratulations.
And finally, I just wanted to mark this occasion with something symbolic. And my wife and I picked a print that we saw on the internet, but we were familiar with. And the print hangs in the City Hall of Siena, Italy. And it's a fresco. And the fresco is called The Effect of Good Government on a Community. And the person who painted that fresco was inspired by what happened in Florence at the time of the Renaissance. Florence, by the way, at that time had the same population as Howell. And in a very short period of time, they launched the Renaissance. And what this artist was saying is that it's because of the quality of good government and a commitment to harmony, a commitment to good order. And I promise you that I will look at this picture and be reminded of the heartfelt feelings that this council told me that they want to achieve those things for Howell Township. And I'll use this picture to remind me of that every day that I come to work here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll excuse you now.
Tom, get those two girls home, and it's going to be a long night.
You're on your own.
Thank you. And on a serious note, you have the commitment of the mayor and council, and welcome.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, we'll continue on. with our agenda. Those were the remaining separate items. I do believe we're now going to go into Article 8A, which are public hearings. Actually, I think we have some tonight.
Yeah.
Do we not, Mr. Davis? Okay. Do you want to start right off with 8A1?
Yes.
All right, 8A1.
Is that the only one for adoption tonight?
There's,
There's one other one. Winston
There's
Park.
two.
There's one other.
Winston Park is the
We
other
have 1 and 4 tonight.
one. Want to do those first?
Yeah. Let me just open up my,
Yeah, I gotta get back to screen. Is your computer working anymore?
No. Is anybody's computer working tonight?
I got it. You can share with me.
Mine's not working.
all right, for the benefit of the public, this is 8A10-061, amending the 2005 salary ordinance. This is the salary ordinance for the Superior Officers Association. The introduction was on January 17th, and we have a public hearing and an adoption this evening, once the technology allows us to open the material.
I have it, you're ready. Yeah, you have to read it
You have to open to the public.
Go on.
All right, ordinance number 061, introduced and passed on first reading on January 17, 2006, and published according to law, is now being taken upon for further consideration and public hearing. Affidavit of the publication of this ordinance in the Asbury Park Press issue of January 20th, 06 is submitted and is noted that a copy of the ordinance has been posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building, and the copies were available to the general public upon request. Mr. Davis, would you please read the title of the ordinance?
An ordinance to amend an ordinance entitled An Ordinance Fixing Salary and Compensation of Certain Officers, Positions, and Employees in the Township of Howell, County of Monmouth, New Jersey, for the years 2005, 2006, 2007, 2008, and 2009, and thereafter known by its short name as Howell Township Salary Ordinance.
All right, I now open the meeting to the public for hearing remarks or comments for or against the final adoption of this ordinance. Anybody who would like to speak on it, please come forward now. Okay, there being no person present desiring to be heard concerning the aforesaid ordinance, I now declare the public hearing on this ordinance closed.
Motion that ordinance number 0-06-1 be finally passed and adopted, and notice of its adoption be published in the 2/10/06 issue of the Asbury Park Press by reference to its title only.
Need a second?
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Malave?
Yes.
Mrs. Showmaker?
Yes.
Mr. Tabasco?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mayor DeBella?
Mayor is absent.
Absent the chamber.
No, thanks.
We're on 884.
0604. 884.
884 we'll go to next. Just bear with me a second. All right, this was an ordinance 06-4 introduced and passed on first reading on January 16, 06 and published according to law, is now being taken up for further consideration and public hearing. Affidavit of publication of this ordinance in the Asbury Park Press issue of January 20th, 06 is submitted and is noted that a copy of the ordinance has been posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building and that copies were available to the general public. This is a ordinance concerning the Winston Park area and the splitting up of it basically into two neighborhoods and the closing off of certain streets to resolve the traffic issues, particularly the 2,000 vehicles a day cutting through the community to get to Jackson. And Mr. Davis, please read the title.
An ordinance of the Township of Howell, Monmouth County, New Jersey, amending Chapter 7 entitled Traffic to effectuate the closing of Redwood Road in two locations.
I now open this meeting to the public for hearing remarks or comments for or against the final adoption of this ordinance. Anybody who wishes to speak on it, please come forward now.
Thank you. When you come up, just please give us your name and address for the record and make
Use
yourself
one of the
comfortable.
mics at the seat.
I'm Benjamin Steadboy, 8 Brookside Drive.
Welcome, sir.
Thanks. I'd like to know who did the study on the closing of these Section 1? How would it affect the property value? And why was this spot chosen?
Let me just write these down. Who did this study?
Yeah, and may I have a copy of that study, please?
Sure. The study, the second was, I know the third was property value. And your second question? The second question?
Who did this?
No, the first question was who did the study?
Okay. Well, there's several questions I have. So
Sure.
let's just continue.
The first I'll tell you is that we had the Howell Township Police Department perform a traffic study using the state-regulated guidelines as it relates to how traffic is to be studied and measured. There are certain parameters that the state requires be used in doing traffic counts and evaluating the number of cars that are going through it at different times, peak times, off times, what have you. So Patrolman Matt Bishop, who's a terrific officer,
And
has
his
spent
qualification,
considerable
I'm sorry.
time. Sure, his qualifications are he is an officer of the Howell Township Police Department. He is a patrolman corporal. He is also our in-house traffic safety police officer. His full-time responsibilities are solely and specifically delegated to matters of traffic safety. So he is the in-house person in our police department responsible for traffic safety. He's familiar with all of the regulations dealing with traffic.
Although I will interject that at the Winston Park meeting at the middle school, when we had that, there was another person introduced that night that was taken over.
Yeah, apparently Officer Bishop is being rotated out of that department, and Officer Markulik, it may even be Sergeant Markulik, I want to get his title correct. Sergeant Markulik is going to be assuming that responsibility. But at the time of this study, Patrolman Bishop actually performed the study. Your third question on property value, I don't know that any of us can answer the question of what that would do to property value. The only observation I might make as a layperson is now that the cut-through traffic has been eliminated, hopefully a prospective buyer won't get run over when they're trying to go into the neighborhood. And I don't mean to say that as being facetious, but I don't know that we can tell you what the property value is. And frankly, I don't want to speak for my colleagues. Everyone will comment on this, but our obligation at the time, based on the evidence, was public safety. And that was really the driving factor around it.
And regarding that last point, and I'll just add on to what Joe just said, there's still unresolved issues over there. And again, with relation to public safety, there's that four-way intersection. I think it's Glen Road on one side, and I forget the name of the road on the other side, from Glen Arden. It might be Glen Arden Road, and also Aldridge Road. We had postulated possibly putting a light there, and we had asked the police officers to look into that, to possibly get a light there so it's safe for the people exiting from that side of the community to make their left turn onto Aldridge during traffic, rush hour traffic hours. So it's still not totally finished.
Isn't the problem here Route 9 and Aldridge Road? Why are we being bothered with Winston Drive, Winston Park?
Sure. I mean, the issue that you raise about Route 9 is a very legitimate one, and we agree. We have had the Department of Transportation alter the timing of the lights. Quite frankly, getting a third lane is not something, unfortunately, that is within the purview of the municipality. And with all due candor, the state is in no financial position to give us any sense of time, commitment, or interest to build a third lane. I mean, it could probably be 5, 10, 15 years.
However,
even if the state was to make that kind of a commitment. Now, what were you going to say about?
However, and I revealed this last time, because this is really not private anymore, it's kind of public information. There is a huge hotel conference center looking to go on across the street over there, across from Stanley Boulevard on Northumberland. And it's a Holiday Inn, actually. And they have met with the DOT several times. And as part of those meetings, it was to put in traffic calming developments over the long haul. So there probably will be widening going on there once that hotel does come in. As to when it's actually going to happen, it still could be a few years off, but they are talking about that whole area going all the way up to Aldrich and all the way back up to Hulse's Corner.
Keep one thing in mind. The problem we have
Georgia
now
Tavern.
is we attempted to make a solution based on what was in our control. We can't control, unfortunately, the Route 9 Aldridge Road situation. And if we wait for the state to put in an overpass or to put in a third lane, quite frankly, that is probably not something that is realistic to tell any of you would happen anytime soon at all.
I'm sure there's many people here who want to make comments, so I'm not going to hog the mic. But I think as is right now, you have chosen the worst possible choice to create Redwood versus...
we don't.
You have created Aldridge Road to be a disaster for the few people who live on the other half of the street, included me, as a matter of fact, and it just would not work. I leave the house at 6:10 every morning, and already it's a nightmare getting out of from Aldridge Road to Brookside to Aldridge Road. It just would not work.
Well, what we can tell you, and you raise a fair point. We did, as the Deputy Mayor pointed out, directed the Police Department to pursue with the Department of Transportation putting a traffic light in at Glen and Aldridge. So people that need to make a left-hand turn out will be able to do that. The problem is we don't have control or jurisdiction to say, put the light in. We have to demonstrate to the state that the traffic patterns warrant putting in a light. So we've asked them to do that, and we're going to push and fight hard to get that traffic light there so that when you need to get out on Aldridge, you'll be able to do so more safely.
My concern, sir, is immediately. This letter says it's going to be effective in a few days. I don't think this is a valid plan at this moment. It just would not work for any of us who lives in that area.
Well, the only
Please
comment.
consider something else. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. We appreciate that.
The only comment I'll add on the end of that is that we did agree to take a look at it a few months from now and see how it's actually working.
Yeah, as the next, who is the next person who would like to be here? Come on up, ma'am. As you're approaching, the deputy mayor is right that this is being looked at to determine if this will work. So we're going to revisit this. None of the things being done is permanent.
I live on Carroll Lane.
Just give us your name and address for the record.
I'm Nancy Condardo, and I live on Carroll Lane, 3 Carroll Lane.
Welcome, Ms. Condardo.
When I saw that, I have to admit I'm very dismayed by the fact that my neighborhood's being cut in half. And for many years, I worked in Jackson. And that meant that in the morning I would go through my neighborhood and I would get onto Aldridge Road and go down to Jackson. Now, I don't work there anymore. I go on Route 9 and go down to Manchester, so it's no problem. But still, I think it's terrible that here I am in a neighborhood where my neighborhood's been cut in half now. And I can't, if I have a friend on the other side of the neighborhood, I have to go on Route 9, go down and around to see my friend on the other side of the neighborhood. I can't believe that this is the only solution to this traffic problem, that the only solution you have is to cut our neighborhood in half like this.
Again, I'll comment and just say that we considered that. The ultimate decision was, look, our number one fiduciary responsibility as council people is to protect the citizens of the town. It's not to protect convenience. So in splitting your neighborhood in half, it's common to some other neighborhoods in this town that are actually split in half to provide traffic calming, and that's exactly what we're going forward with, is to provide safety. So safety outweighed convenience, and that's why we reached the decision that we did. And again, I'll say, we're not going to go into this statically. It's going to be dynamic. We'll take a look at it again in 3 months. But you still can get to your neighbor. It just might take you an extra minute.
Yeah, well.
And the kids can still ride through the pylons. They can see the other kids, and they actually will be able to go into the streets now, ride their bikes, and do things that they could not do with the way things were, with 2,000 cars a day flying through that neighborhood to beat the light at Aldrich and Route 9.
Oh, I know that my children were concerned about their bus and the fact that the bus has to go around now instead of going through the neighborhood. It would take a lot more time. I don't know. It's just the idea of cutting our neighborhood in half does still disturb me very much. I'm sure that it's a safety issue, but it still disturbs me that all of a sudden our neighborhood's cut in half. And I'm wondering if it is going to solve the problem or if it's just going to make another problem.
You raise a good point, Nancy.
These are all good points.
We need to get some time, once this goes into place, to get a handle on that. I will tell you that, and I know you may not have been in some of the other meetings, we had input from our township engineer, members of the first aid squad, members of the fire service, members of the police department. We listened to many, many comments from residents in your development. We had one special meeting several months back where all we talked about was this issue. At the last meeting that we had at Middle School North, Patrolman Bishop or Officer Bishop got up and gave a PowerPoint presentation with all the data and the statistics that backed it up. And we would be remiss if we said, and I use this line a lot, that we have sort of the monopoly on wisdom. But based on the available information we had at the time, and based on what had been reported to us, and all of the input from the people we put together to try and fix this problem, at the time this seemed like and seems like the best, most immediate solution. It might not be the long-term solution, but it's one we have to try and give a shot to try and eliminate this massive cut-through problem that legitimately exists, which brings in more traffic and speeding and very unsafe conditions that many people have talked to us about. We don't profess this is perfect, nor will it make everybody happy, but I think we all believe it's going to best represent what can help save lives potentially. And if 2, 3, 4, 5 months down the road, it turns out that it hasn't made the situation any better, then we're going to have to go back and look at something different again.
Mr. Mayor, just to clarify something, the school buses will not be going around. They're still going to maintain their same route that they have now. They're going to go over this pilot.
So they can go through the pilot?
Yes.
All right.
The emergency vehicles, such as fire departments first aid squads, they will be able to go over those.
No, I think, Ms. Malabi, they can go through the pylons in the event of an emergency.
The emergency.
But the school, the board of...
I specifically asked that question of Officer Bishop at the last meeting that we had, and I believe, and I could be wrong, that he specifically said that the school buses will be able to go over.
Yeah,
Well, whatever.
Yeah, I don't...
Okay, so I'm wrong.
That's okay, I'm wrong all the time. I mean,
Let's go back
just
to
ask my
previous.
wife, she'll tell you. But,
On the tape.
okay. Thank you for your
Well,
comments.
thank you.
We appreciate it. Who else would like to be heard on this particular ordinance? Yes, Chief, welcome.
My name's Robert Donahue. I live on 17 Carroll. I'm also the Assistant Chief of the Fire Department.
Just say that into the mic
Would you
again.
again, I'm sorry, Chief, so we can get it on the
My
recording.
name's Robert Donahue. I live on 17 Carroll Lane. I have a few issues. First one would be with the fire service. You said that we'll be able to go over the barricades with our fire trucks. What about our members responding to the building in their private vehicles? Are they going to be exempted to go over the pylons?
You raise a very good point. I think the answer has to be yes. From an enforcement perspective, whatever notification, either Mr. Gannon and/or Mr. Davis, that needs to be communicated to the police, that a member responding to an emergency call
That was actually
that has
discussed.
the right credentials has to be empowered to go through.
Now, however, they are going to be 48-inch high pylons, so you don't want to necessarily cause damage to
I
vehicles.
mean, they'll have to use their best judgment, obviously,
Yeah.
but,
My second thing is a
I think-
safety issue.
hold on one
Chief,
second.
I think in order to distinguish that it's not an average citizen and it is an emergency response
This mic.
individual, the blue light should be on.
Oh, we don't have,
Yes,
all
they
our members don't carry blue lights.
You don't have blue lights to...
Not all our members, no.
Well,
That's
I
emergency
think
light anyway.
It was discussed.
if we can,
Well, it would
Mr. Davis,
distinguish
we
what's
just
an
need,
emergency vehicle and what isn't.
obviously, if, God forbid, someone was pulled over, so long as they presented their credentials, they didn't have their blue light, they were in a different vehicle, whatever the case may be, then obviously they would need to be exempted from being given any ticket or fine. Can we articulate that as a policy means with the police department?
Yeah, I guess if we, have you given us a roster yet of your membership? If you did that, I would make sure the police department gets it.
All right, so Chief, if you could get the roster to the manager, we'll see to it that those individuals have the authority.
Chief,
Yes.
wasn't that discussed with the meeting with Officer
It was
Bishop?
discussed at the fire vehicles themselves.
But I thought you raised the question, if in emergency, one of those that lived in that development were coming out, would they be exempt from having to go around and be able, and I thought he said, as long as it was an emergency, not somebody wanting to use that excuse as an emergency. I think he clearly stated that. I think,
It wasn't me, it was my brother. That's beside
oh, okay.
They're twins.
Oh.
That's fine. All right, second issue, talk about safety.
Get that all the time with these two.
When Patrolman Bishop brought up his information, did he state how many summonses were issued in Winston Park for
He did.
speeding?
Yeah, he did. Patrolman
Okay.
Bishop did give us the statistics in the presentation that had, I can't recall what the numbers were, but over a period of time, he did illustrate the number of summonses. And in fact, Mr. Davis, if we can, it was a great PowerPoint presentation. Can we perhaps have that added to the Township website
That's a good idea.
so that the presentation is out there in the event some have not heard it?
Yeah,
Okay, I need to excuse myself.
I'll get on that tomorrow.
Okay, and the third one would be as a safety issue is I live on the north side, which is Carroll Lane, Maple, Stanley, Bass, all that. My concern is going out to the highway. Now you're forcing my side of development going onto Route 9. No matter what I do, I have to go to Route 9.
Correct.
And I have an issue with the school buses especially because for the kids to go to Aldridge School or Landon Pine School or whatever school they go to, they gotta come out of our development, go down to Aldridge Road or Highway 9 to Aldridge Road. Coming home, they gotta go up Aldridge Road, back down Route 9 around the jug end to get back in. I hate driving my car there. I have lights and sirens and I hate driving my car on Route 9. There's accidents there 24 hours, 7 days a week. You have people coming up the shoulder, don't pay attention just to beat that light. Now you're putting the kids back on Route 9 in harm's way. I have a problem with that.
No,
A serious problem with that.
no, that was just.
You know. And it's, I think the guy's coming off Aldridge Road. I went out there this afternoon just for see actually time had. I went from Brookside and also Glen Road to get out to Aldridge Road. The first time on Brookside took me 7 minutes to make a left-hand turn on Aldridge.
I think we all agree that that's a
Glen
problem.
Road, it took me 10 minutes to make a left-hand turn on the Glen Road. 7 minutes or 10 minutes don't sound like a lot of time unless you're sitting at that light trying to get through. And Saturday morning, I talked to a gentleman before, Saturday morning it's just utterly impossible to get onto Aldridge Road. There's got to be a better way. With either, I know Eatontown, we discussed the last meeting, Eatontown with speed bumps, with more ticket writing, whatever they got to do, but in my opinion, and depending on my department, this is the worst case scenario we could do for our development.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief. Who else would like to be heard next on this? Yes, ma'am. Welcome. When you come forward, just please give us your name and address for the record.
My name is
After you
Hold
say,
on,
yeah.
in front of the microphone. Sorry.
I'm sorry. My name is Pat Tansey. I live at 7 Glen Road.
Welcome, Ms. Tansey.
Right across from Redwood.
Hello, Pat.
I've lived there for 27 years. I'm not really a public speaker, but I did write a letter to the Howell Times that nobody reads, but if you don't mind, I'll just read parts
That's
of it
fine.
that make
Just
sense.
do us one favor. If you could lift up that microphone to get a little bit closer
There
to
you
you so
go.
everyone can hear you. Thank you.
By police account, 2,000-plus cars per day use Winston Park as a cut-through between Route 9 and Aldridge Road. A solution to this problem is long overdue. However, the solution voted in by the Town Council on January 10th will force half of Winston Park to access Route 9 via an already overused Aldridge Road. My concern with this plan is not inconvenience or that it will take us a few minutes longer but to get where we're going, but that our safety is now being compromised. When we make a left onto Aldridge Road has no light until Route 9, and at one Winston Park exit has 4 lanes of traffic feeding onto it. This intersection has already had more than its share of accidents, by the way. I don't want to be part of that statistic. I don't want any of the children to be part of that statistic, and if my kids were still home and driving, I wouldn't want them driving that way. The council voted down the option of closing all the Aldridge Road entrances because of concerns in having only one way in and out of Winston Park. But isn't one exit entrance exactly all that the other half of Winston Park will have now? I believe that because of the traffic light at Stanley Boulevard, closing the Aldridge Road entrance would have been the more viable and much safer option for all of the residents of Winston Park. This plan has already been implemented in the Northwoods Woodside Drive development on the other side of Route 9, across from Winston Park, when we put in 195, and it worked very well. They closed Aldridge Road, not with ugly pylons, but with pretty little flowers, and those people all have a light to get in and out of. I have never heard a complaint. I know it's probably inconvenient, but inconvenient isn't the problem. It's safety. Safety for all of Winston Park. I don't use Aldridge Road. I go on Route 9. I go to Provident Bank, I go on Route 9. I go to ShopRite, I go on Route 9 through Stanley Boulevard. I never use Aldridge Road. You're telling me about the backups. You're telling me there's 2,000 cars out there, and now you're going to put 2,000 cars, which now won't be able to cut through, plus my 100 cars on my half of the development. There's something wrong with this. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Yes, who'd like? Yes, ma'am. Good evening. Welcome.
Good evening. Hi, my name is Becky Kubler. I live at 36 Brookside Drive in Howell. My question is that I've seen like all these public notices in the papers and stuff. I had asked for do not block the intersection signs on Aldridge Road. I have not seen that like in the public notice part of the Asbury Park Press or anything.
Mm-hmm.
Will they be put up?
Yeah, we did talk about signs. The police department has discretion on certain signage where that we don't need DOT approval. Mr. Davis, I believe that was one of the signs that we did agree that Patrolman Bishop was going to take back. Could you just make certain that that was on the long list of signs?
I know there were numerous signs that were.
Mr. Nunziato, you recall was that was one of them, correct?
Yes, it was.
Don't block the box.
No, I'm trying to look in the ordinances I have in here to see if it's in there. Can you, just for the record, one more time, tell me specifically?
Do not block intersection signs on the 3 entrances
Yep.
onto Aldridge Road. We're going to need those.
Yes.
And as far as the light, they told us at the last meeting, not actually Mr. Bishop, I believe it was, said that because now there won't be that much traffic coming out of Winston Park, that light might not be warranted at this point.
No, I think it may have, if as I recall, it could have been the reverse, in that previously the difficulty they had there was that with the backup of the traffic, it may have created a situation where the light could have been a traffic safety issue.
And now that we're not going to have all the cut-through traffic that would have backed up in the development waiting for the light, that we may have a better opportunity to pursue it now. I mean, either way, I mean, your recollection could be right, mine certainly could be wrong, but I know we did say we are going to pursue putting that light in. And ultimately, if the DOT refuses, I happen to be with a mind to tell them to come down here and take it down. I'd rather put it up, if we need to do that.
All right, thank you.
Thanks for your comments. Who else would like to be heard? Sir, we're going to let the lady go first.
That's the old, it's better to ask for forgiveness than for permission.
That's right. Welcome. Just please give us your name and address in front of the mic, please.
My name is Nancy Wood. I live at 20...
Ms. Wood, would you pull the mic a little close to you?
I live at 20 Kiwi Loop in Howell.
Welcome.
But I am here on behalf of my mother, who lives on Brookside Drive, where I was born, and my aunt, who also lives on Brookside Drive. And I have also a cousin on Redwood Road. I do believe the cars drive too fast in that neighborhood, but they drive fast in a lot of in my neighborhood, and a lot of people cut through Winston Park. But I live in Woodstone, and they all cut through Salem Hill to get to Aldridge Road. I don't believe splitting our development in half. I love waving to Harry when I drive by his house, and I won't be able to do that anymore.
I love waving to Harry when I see him in the morning at coffee.
And even though we're on opposite, sides right now of the development, I just feel like I drive in and out of Winston Park about at least 6 times a day because I'm the caregiver for my mom.
So you're the one cutting through there?
Yes.
That's 6 of the 2,000.
There you go.
At least 6 times.
Just leave us a photocopy of your driver's license on the way out.
And getting out on Brookside Drive is hard. So I do backtrack to Stanley Boulevard to go home to Oak Glen, off Oak Glen Road. And I tell my young son also not to go out Brookside, to also go out at the light. It's too dangerous. That's all I'd like to say.
Appreciate your comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Who else would like to be heard? Yes, sir. Come forward, please. Welcome. Please give us your name and address.
My name is Ken Raish. I
Hi,
live
Mr.
at
Raish.
550 Aldrich Road, Howell.
Thank you for
I
coming.
live on the corner house of Glen and Aldrich. Now, you are basically
Could you do us a favor, sir? Would you
Okay,
get a little
I'm
closer
too
for
close.
the people in the back?
Okay.
Thank you.
I live on the corner of Aldrich and Glen. I'm in the brick house there. You're basically now going to divide the development into, which to a certain extent, it's going to inconvenience me, it's going to inconvenience some other people. I'm not going to argue too much about that. What I am going to argue about, though, is that I watch the traffic on Aldrich every day. I'm sorry. That road at night, I hear them fly down it at 70, 80 miles an hour, it seems like, because I can hear them in my house. They drag on it at night, everything else. I've had more cars in my front lawn. I've had people drive down my driveway and take out trees in my property because of the accidents happening at that corner. And they've asked for a traffic light for a long time for there, and it's never really been happening.
Who do you say they? Who's they?
Neighbors of mine have talked about it. They've asked about it, and they've been told that they couldn't get it. But the thing I'm going to say is that until you have that there, you're going to basically have a problem with this solution because of the basic flow trying to get out of the development now. Because if you're going to basically put everybody on Aldrich until they find other alternatives, you're going to basically have a lot of problems getting out of the development. For a short time, yes, but I can see this becoming a problem. I would also like to know is can we put do not enter signs or no pass through or whatever on Glen and stuff so people know that there will no longer be a way to get through the development. Because I'm sorry.
I said that.
Yeah, well, they are.
You're going to have all kinds of people having accidents. Most of the accidents where I am are people coming across from Glen Arden into my development. That's where most of the accidents have happened, where people have T-boned each other.
Yeah, the answer is the police department is going to be putting up signs in advance of the implementation of the change, giving people, I think, Patrolman Bishop talked about a 30-day window. I don't recall specifically. But there is going to be signage telling people as of such and such a date, please be aware of the changes so that people that are currently driving and cutting through and causing all those excess cars to be by your home, they'll at least have an advance warning that as of this date, don't come through. Now, the other thing is, on an ongoing basis, can you put certain signs up? Apparently, from what the police department has told us, some of the signs are not enforceable. And you could put them up, and unless there's a policeman or a policewoman there all the time, there isn't a way to see to it that it gets enforced.
My concern about the sign was basically that it gave people notice that they weren't going to be able to come through anymore and cut through. And basically, no outlet or whatever would basically, I think, at least give that indication to people over time that might start realizing, hey, yeah, I can't get through the development anymore. But if...
Yeah, and that's what we're going to be doing.
Yeah.
Are you finished?
No, I'm done.
Okay.
Thank you for your comments.
We've heard enough comments tonight about the issue of Glen Road and Glen Arden Road and Aldrich Road right there. And thinking out of the box a little bit, we just got a report in our packet less than a month ago about the Explorers that were formulated like in the late 70s and how many hundreds of events they do every year in controlling traffic. Maybe this could be a training ground for them during the 2 rush hours where we have somebody stationed there to direct traffic between like 7 in the morning to 9 in the morning and then 4 in the afternoon till like 6:30 at night. Well, whatever the time frame is, I would want to maybe have that asked somewhere after we debated this a little bit, that maybe we have Explorers actually there.
Okay. Who else would like to be heard? We'll get to everybody. Yes, sir. Go ahead. No, not at all.
Never.
Welcome. It's nice to see you.
John Tansey, 7 Glen Road.
Hello, Mr. Tansey.
Hello, Mayor. Couple questions. You keep saying that you're going to try this for a month, 3 months, whatever. What makes this option the one we're going to try and not the other option? Is it
safe?
Oh, how's it safe? Who says it's safest?
Well, there's 2 exits, one on Stanley and one on Redwood on one side. There's 2 exits on the other side, Glen Road and Brookside. If you do the other option, there's only 1 exit. Now, if you block off all 3 of those, there's only 1 exit.
I think...
Well, that's all the people that are going to be down that side are going to have now, right?
I think the honest answer is...
Safety.
We looked at the options, we listened to the comments, and I can assure you, we have to listen to everybody's comments. There were just as many people who felt strongly to the other side. And it doesn't, let me just finish, it doesn't mean that you guys are right and they're wrong, or they're wrong and you're right. We're in the sometimes less than desirable position of having to listen to all of that evidence and try and make the best decision possible. So this is the one that, right, recommendations of a whole variety of real credentialed and talented people. As I said before, no one professes this is the silver bullet answer, but it certainly will eliminate the cut-through traffic. We're going to give it some time. We're going to see what the results of it become, and we'll go from there. But I think that's the honest answer. Why this over the other one? In looking at the evidence, that was the vote.
At the last meeting at the middle school, when you closed open talk and before you guys voted, the patrolman said that the one lady who got this thing rolling, she had 93 signatures, and that's why he thought that this would be the best alternative. She decided to do this. Now, I'm just asking you a question. Suppose I got 105 signatures for this other way. Would that have changed it? Would that have made a difference?
No. I can tell you that the 93 signatures were signatures asking us to look at the issue. Right. The outcome could have been one they weren't happy with. I mean, I'll ask everyone to comment on this, but we got the evidence. We had to make a decision. Sometimes we make people happy. Sometimes we don't. But in the end, at least when I vote, I have to make certain that I think I'm doing the right thing for everybody.
Okay, can I ask you one more question?
Yeah, before you do that, other people may want to give their own answer. Mr. Walsh, you look like
I
you
would
want
like to say something.
But that was exactly right.
I was not sold on either option. Okay, I listened to what was said that night, and whether the 3 roads were shut off or the 1, I really thought that 1 had to be done. Okay, so 1 I was going to vote on. from listening to the police officer and all his investigation and what he did, and from listening to the citizens that night, I picked one. If I had thought that more citizens wanted the 3 roads shut and the police officer, Mr. Bishop, had said that he didn't see a problem with that option, I would have voted that way.
The first vote, you voted for the other option.
I lean more towards it.
Yes.
I mean, but after listening to everybody,
Let me ask you one question. Now, I
Sure.
know this is probably impossible to do. Why couldn't you get every registered voter that lives, or not registered driver, that lives in Winston Park to vote on this thing? And then then if the majority voted one way, do it that way, the majority voted the other way, do it the other way.
That's a great premise, but it's not just the drivers at risk. It's the kids in the neighborhood, the people that don't drive, and there's more than just drivers that are at risk.
The drivers have the kids. Don't I have children that live there?
Yeah, but it's not just you're missing the point. There's 2,000 cars that go through there. Not all those cars live in that neighborhood. So they're
No.
putting people that live there at risk that are not necessarily drivers.
I'm saying for one thing or the other.
is it a given that the roads, that it had to be closed?
Pardon?
Do we all agree with that?
We agree there's a huge traffic issue.
It had to stop. The 2,000 cars speeding through that development daily had to stop. Do we agree with that?
The speeding part, yes.
Yeah,
Well,
okay.
But we could have put speed bumps in, too.
That causes speed bumps above 25 miles an hour actually cause cars to go up onto lawns and stuff when you have kids playing. That, again, is a very dangerous thing.
And there were legal issues
All right,
with the
so
speed
you
bumps?
guys are going to do whatever you want, so I've had my say. I'm sorry.
Please, before you go, please understand that no one up here is trying to do anything
to
harm anybody. Please know that it is sincerely out of trying to do what we think will be in the best interest of everybody. We acknowledge there's more than one way to skin this cat, but we've got to try something. We don't want you to leave thinking that we're blind and deaf to what you're saying.
I understand that, and I understand you're doing your job. But for us to come here tonight was a waste of time.
No,
Because
absolutely
you
not.
already had it set in your mind what you're going to do.
Well, we have deliberated on it for months, and we had a lot of professionals.
And
but it's never a way-
every meeting we had, you had it in your mind what you were going to do to begin with.
That's not true.
You're doing your job, you're going to do what you do, but it was a waste of time for us to come here.
Well, no, it's never a waste of time.
Your comments are always welcome, and I mean that. We've had many times when someone has gotten up and raised something that had not been talked about, had not been taken into consideration, and I don't think we ever overlooked that. I don't think there's any new evidence that has come to us.
We know that a third of the people there are disappointed. So if this doesn't prove to be an answer, we will.
You think it's only a third?
About that.
That's
There was a
what you
lot
think.
more. Calm down.
Hold on.
Wait.
I've got at least 50 people that I know wouldn't come here tonight because they said there's no sense of going. They got their mind made up.
My point, which you didn't let me finish, is that this is not over. This is a fluid process. We have to do something just like the mayor said. So we'll take a look at this. Let me finish. You had your turn. Let me finish. So this wasn't something we did like that. And we did not make a decision until that last meeting, which was after several months of deliberation and a lot of professionals giving their input. So we made a decision that night, yes. The decision isn't final until tonight. So your input tonight could have still changed the outcome of this. As of right now, it still thinks from a straw poll here. We haven't voted yet, but from a straw poll, I think you're right. It is going to be that we're going to try this. But I'm telling you, it's still fluid. That if 3 months from now it does not work, we know that a third of the people are annoyed, we'll look at it again.
Harry will tell you when he gets up here, we've been, in our community, I've lived there for 27 years. We've had this problem. We've been trying to get this done for 20 years. Now, you're going to tell me if this don't work in 3 months, you're going to change it?
Hey, I can't tell you why other administrations would not resolve an issue that we looked at and said we got to take a shot at. I know that we are very proactive, and we decided to do something about it. Now, we're not going to please everybody when we do something. And I disagree with Joe. Every time we do something, there are going to be people that are disappointed. But we have a job to do. That's why we're elected.
If you guys can say in 3 months, if this don't work out, you'll change it, that'll be fine with me.
I think we have said that in three months,
You
4
have
months.
said that, yes.
We're going to look at the results. We're going to ask the police to come in and tell us what kind of cars are going through now, what kind of violations are being issued now, what kind of traffic violations have there been. Take a look at it, the number of accidents, and then do a comparison. And then we'll at least have some baseline information, which has been 20 years' worth of data, versus what happened. And if this isn't the right decision, then we'll look for another one.
Plus,
But
we'll
we're
also know if we
committed to
have the
trying
light.
some.
We'll also know if we have the light by then. We'll also know if there's a way to put some,
We appreciate your
some
comments.
traffic control.
No. Thank you for your comments. We appreciate, we listen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Who else would like to be heard? Yes, ma'am. When you come forward, as always, just give us your name and address. Welcome. Thank you for coming out tonight.
Hi, my name is Renee Whitaker. I live at 27 Maple Lane.
Can you, Renee, just speak up a little louder?
Sure. Number one, I just want to commend the council for bringing up the fact of safety. As usual, you guys have just really brought it to the table of what this really is about. I have a 9-year-old daughter, and my biggest concern is that I'm playing Russian roulette every time I let her outside. One of these times, I am going to lose. And I don't want to lose my only child. And I don't care about anything else. I know there's a bigger problem here, but the one thing that is the most important thing is child safety. And that's all I want them to understand. That's it.
Thank you for your comments. Who else would like to be heard? Yes, Harry, come on up.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Name's Harry Angrisani.
Welcome, Mr. Grassani.
Live at 22 Maple Lane. I told you last meeting we're going to cause like the East and West, the Hatfield, McCoys kind of thing, and we still have a problem with the fire company and the emergency vehicles. I played with my Matchbox cars. I sat in the development. I live this time of year. I'm not working. All right. I ran through the place like if the cones were there. Now, if you just close off 3 out of the 5 streets, Elm, Glen, and Redwood, Route 9. You won't have none of these people complaining. I'm sure you have the Donahue's Fire Company happy that they don't have to worry about blue lights, that they can do their speed limits, not stopping at the stop signs, and the problem will be solved.
How do you make
it
it?
up by the other end of Redwood, causing 2 problems with the other end of the neighborhood.
The option you just presented, though, puts people making a left off of Brookside instead of off of Glen. And you have to admit that the traffic backs up more towards Brookside than it does to Glen most of the time. It'll actually hit Brookside first. Glen's further away, correct, from Route 9? So if you try to make a left off of
by the pantry?
I'm saying if you make a left to go east towards Highway 9 and
Yeah.
you're forcing people to do that from Brookside, it's a lot more hazardous than it would be from making that left further up west
They could go
off
right
of
to-
Glen.
Then they could go to Stanley, make the light, get on 9.
Well, okay, well now you're going back to the other side.
No, I'm not.
Your option.
You're thinking of development being cut in half now. I'm not.
No, I'm saying you're leaving it open where people have to make a left from Brookside, not from Glen.
They're not going to come up Brookside to go down Redwood to Stanley. That's going to be a longer process for them. It's not going to work for them.
You're misunderstanding me. I'm saying to make a left onto Aldrich, you're forcing them to do that from Brookside, not from Glen. If you close up Glen, one of your postulated answers right now is to close off Glen Road.
Yeah, by Aldrich.
Then you have to make the left onto Aldrich off of Brookside, which is not smart. If you want to make a left to go east onto Aldrich, you'll have to do it from Brookside, not Glen, which is much closer to the light, which will have much more traffic. It'll be a much longer waiting period.
That'd be the people that
and
live
more
in the
people
development.
darting out.
That'd be the people that live in the development. I think you need to get in your car and go there.
Oh,
at
I've
least
been
every
there
other-
plenty of time.
I haven't seen you.
I've been there plenty of time.
I've seen Mr. Walsh. I've seen Mrs. there.
You know I have.
Yeah. I've never seen you in there. You're a ghost, then. I've never seen you in there.
I'm all over the town.
Not as much as me. But I think if you went with that route, you won't have nobody here complaining. You won't have to review it after 3 months. I think you'd be happy with that pick.
Except you still have to cut through traffic.
And what's a couple more cones? You're only closing off one more little street, Elm. And
You're leaving the cut-through
You're
traffic
leaving the
open.
cut-through open that way.
You leave it, right, you're still
You're
leaving,
still
you're
leaving
still
the cut
leaving
through.
a cut-through, and
They're
you're
not
still...
going to go. They're pretty much smart.
They will go.
They're not going to go all the way down to the pantry when they only have another 200 more feet to go to the light.
People go down Carroll Lane on the
Once they
Redwood off
get-
of Stanley
once
just to
they
beat
get to
100
that-
cars on Highway 9 right now. You're missing
Once they
that
get
part.
to that part, they cut through the Sears parking lot. They cut through. You have to see the.
What
patterns
about
that they
coming
do.
home at night? Wouldn't they still get off of Route 9 at Stanley and come up through Brookside to get onto Aldrich?
Absolutely.
Coming home at night.
Yeah, coming home at night.
Coming home at night, they'd still be flying through the development. Is that
I
accurate?
don't think. Why would they take that pattern when they drive the shoulder all the time?
Yeah, but
Everybody drives the shoulder over there.
Well, not only do they drive the
all
shoulder,
road.
they're going up Stanley, cutting down Carroll, and making a left on the Redwood just to cut off 100 cars, which we have to cut off to cut through
We'd have
traffic.
1,000 cars coming up. We'd have 1,000 cars, and we'd have them all funneled now to one street.
Yeah.
I mean, how is that a safe
It's
thing
not.
for children on that street?
It's not.
It's not. It's not, I mean,
No matter where we go, it's
you never get me to say funnel them from 3 streets, 1,000 cars, 1,200 cars into one.
One.
You're not going to get me to agree.
Mayor, I would ask if there anybody else that comes up if they have something new, because we've been deliberating now for 45 minutes on
Mr.
it.
Bassani, you have anything else?
Angrisani.
Gangrosani, I apologize. I usually call you Harry, but...
That's it. That's all. But I
Thank
can't
you
see
for
this
your
ever happen.
comments.
I've been complaining for 20 years, and I don't see anything new about it at all.
We're going to give it a try. Who else would like to be heard on this?
With
And
something
the
new.
Deputy Mayor raises a good point. We've heard many of the comments. If there's a point that has not been raised, we would appreciate hearing that. Good. Welcome.
Lay it on us.
Just give us your name and address.
Hi, Donna Martin, 25 Glen Road.
Welcome, Ms. Martin.
Regarding child safety, the kids in our development are already starting to panic because their buses are going to be changed. So I called transportation. Transportation has no clue what we were up to. That's exactly what they told me.
I
They
can
have
tell
no
you,
clue.
I can tell you that Officer Bishop specifically spoke to.
Well, I gave them
Yeah.
his name and phone number.
He spoke to, I don't know the name of the director or the department heads, but
I don't know.
Officer Bishop is one of the finest people that we
Right.
have in this community. And if he
However-
tells us he talked to the transportation director of the local and the regional board, maybe the person you spoke to at that level wasn't aware that
Right.
they've had contact, correspondence, and communication, and input.
The transportation did say that they wished that you would wait until June to switch the bus routes for ease of their drivers and not to panic the little ones on the buses. And freehold buses also asked for the same thing.
They did not make that request to us.
This is what I got
Right.
from them because I
They-
called because I had kids panicking,
Sure.
mine being one of them.
They certainly did
And
not.
she's in high school.
They did not relay that, at least not to our knowledge, to
Well, I didn't
Patrolman
actually
Bishop.
speak to administrators.
Right.
I spoke to whoever answered the phone. And they actually told me nobody in her department had been made aware of anything. So I don't know, administration's not passing something down the line, or they're still working on their end of it, I don't know. But they did say that they wish that we would wait until June. So that kids could be rerouted after June, and they wouldn't have to panic. They could still be picked up in their same spots and everything.
And we've been led to believe that there really is not going to be significant changes to the bus routes. I mean, that's what had
Well, that's not what they
reported to
told
us.
me. If we cut Redwood, they said they're going to actually have to put a second bus.
Well, I would ask Mr. Davis if you could follow that up with Patrolman Bishop. Where is Mr. Davis? Okay. When he returns, Penny, would you?
Okay, I'm just saying, because they said they'd like us to wait
Okay,
until June.
we will check into at least the dialogue. They've not shared that with us, so it could be the person that has to make the bus route change doesn't want to have to do the additional effort, but
That could be too, but they're also thinking of the little ones having to change them, like kindergarten, first and second grade. They panic too easy over a little change. And this would be a big one for them, to have to all of a sudden find a different bus when they go outside of the school and look for a different bus driver.
we will follow up with
Okay.
it because what they've told us is that was not going to change. So
Okay.
but we will make certain of that.
All right, thank you.
Just so you know, Joe, I went on the local board website, and it doesn't actually list a director sitting over transportation. So you'd have to go through, Enid or her to find out who it might be.
I think Mr. Massa has responsibility. Anyone else who'd like to be heard on this? Yes, ma'am, come on forward. Is there anyone else after this fine lady that would like to be heard on this? You'd like to be, okay. Okay. I do have to, I understand.
I did a visit when I stuck them over there. So everybody
Please
saw
say
it.
your name and address into the mic.
Just give us your name and address.
My name is Terry Mergner, 9 Glen Road.
Welcome.
Thank you. And I just think it's ridiculous. We've been there over almost 30 years, and our kids have been on the corner where this is happening, and it's not right. You just have to close the street.
Yes, ma'am, you want to be heard? welcome. Just please give us your name and address.
Melanie Wedewer, 48 Glen Road. I'm right near the end of Aldridge, right near there, and I still go out Stanley because I like a light. If you really have to do this, I'd like you to wait until you get a light, because otherwise you're never going to get out of this development. It's just horrible to get out of there. There was an accident in my driveway. My car was there. The car came up and hit my car.
Let me ask you a question.
Now,
was it someone that lived in your development?
It's someone that lives in my development, okay? So you think this is going to make you safe. I hope the kids are still going to be careful, because accidents happen all the time. It doesn't matter if they're people from Jackson or they're people from your development. It can happen. And I don't want the kids to think, oh, now we're safe. We can ride our bikes in the street. We can do everything. We can play ball in the street like they used to when the development was brand new. You're not going to be able to do that still. And I just don't want people to think it's safe and you can send your kids out. That's why you have backyards. Put the kids in the backyards. So that's all. I just wanted to say that. I'm just really not happy with this situation, and I don't know that this is the very best solution. I would like a light there before you go ahead and split the development. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Okay. Anyone else that has not been heard on this? Anyone else? Is there something that you haven't already said? Because we generally...
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
No, you got to come to the mic.
I'm going to...
If he lets him.
All I'm going to say is if it's something you've already said before...
I understand what you said.
Okay, so we'll go ahead. We need your name and address again.
This is Benjamin Steadway again, number 8 Brookside Drive. Please like you guys to consider not to do anything until further solution can be found. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Seeing that no one else, I'm going to close the public portion on this particular matter. I'm going to ask a member of the council to at least make a motion to begin deliberation.
Motion that ordinance number 06-4 be finally passed and adopted, and notice of its passage and adoption be published in the February 10/06 issue of the Asbury Park Press by reference to its title only.
We have a motion. We need a second.
Second, Mayor.
We have a motion and a second. Under remarks. Are there any additional remarks?
I will say, Mr. Mayor, if I may, that a lot of concerns have been raised here tonight, obviously. A lot of concerns were raised at the last meeting that we had at the middle school north. And as the mayor stated before, the people came to us to solve a problem that they've had for 27 years, I've been hearing. I'm not sure that this is going to solve their problem, or at least not solve the problem of all the residents in that development. I don't know that we're going to ever be able to find a solution that's going to make everybody happy in that development. I even had suggested, I think Deputy Mayor Tabasco also suggested perhaps making it a gated development, so that only the residents in that area have access to. I don't know if that's a valuable option or not, but that's something that we should pursue further and look into.
Totally agree.
The lights is a great idea. I think that we must do something. I'm in the opinion that we should try to move ahead with the proposed option by the professionals and by a lot of the residents who came out to speak at the middle school north. And bear in mind that there is no easy solution to this problem. So we must do something. I don't want to do something that's going to actually put people's lives at risk. And making the left turn seems to be the biggest concern here, making the left turn onto Aldrich Road. Well, in that case, it's an inconvenience. People may have to, and I know they're not going to be happy to hear this either, but they may have to, if they feel that that's going to be such a high risk to make that left, they may want to make a right turn and then turn around in another. Again,
Folks,
again, I know
please.
it's not easy, believe me, but bear in mind, you people brought this problem to us to do something about it. We are doing something about it, and I realize it's not making everybody happy. I'm of the opinion with the mayor, let's try and do something. Let's go ahead with this plan. Let's monitor very closely. At least we have some data to compare one versus the other. We know what we have now. We'll see what we have in 3 months from now or so. And let's push for this light off of Aldrich Road. I don't know how long that's going to take to put in there. But I believe, Mr. Mayor, we need the okay from the DOT to put a light there.
We do need the DOT's approval, yes.
And we're currently
We are pursuing that. From the last meeting, we did direct Patrolman Bishop to pursue that and to get back to us with whatever the requirements might be. And I'm still of the opinion, put the light in and let the DOT come down here and tell me to take it down.
Well,
but we have to at least attempt to follow the law so that they don't come here and tell us to take it down.
I don't have any other comment, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Tabasco, any final comments? No. Okay. Mr. Walsh, any additional comments?
I believe something has to be done here. I mean, without Mr. Bishop here, he was there at Middle School North. I was leaning towards closing down Aldrich Road totally. That's where I was leaning at first. And what you said to me was the most important thing. Coming out and making that left is going to be even worse for the people that live on that side. But, I mean, I voted on what I thought you just wanted. I knew a solution, something had to be done. From sitting there having no predetermined disposition that night, and I did not have a predetermined disposition. I voted on what I thought you wanted to be done and something that would be safe for your children. I'll be glad to look at this down the road, but we voted on something. We had a professional there, did a lot of research. I'll be glad to look at it again, because I hear what you're saying.
Understand, Bob, the vote is tonight, though. That's just the introduction.
I was going to say that. The official vote is tonight, Bob, so you can vote either way, obviously.
Anything else, Mr. Walsh?
No.
Thank you for your comments, sir. All right, Mrs. Showmaker.
Mayor, just a few words. I would say that we have debated this issue long and hard. Unfortunately, I'm not a professional in the traffic study, and I, for one, always try to rely on our professionals that we pay to give us the best possible advice. And it's my understanding that this is a trial. If it's not an answer, that we go back to the drawing board, and maybe it goes back to its original state. And that's why the pylons that were put in are temporary. It's not a permanent situation. This is a situation where someone has brought in a number of residents on signatures on a petition and ask for the council to be involved. To do something. And unbeknownst to me, I don't believe that anybody up here has the credentials to do a traffic study. So we have as council, it's incumbent upon us to rely on our professionals. And I'll stand to be corrected if this is a bad move. But first and foremost is a safety issue here, and that's always been first.
Okay. I have nothing additional. Are there any final remarks? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Mullabay?
Yes.
Mrs. Showmaker?
Yes.
Mr. Tabasco?
Aye.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mayor DeBella?
Yes. Okay, we're going to take a 5-minute recess, and then we're going to convene exactly where we were. I'm going to reconvene the meeting back to order. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to get back to our agenda and move as diligently as we can. We do have public portion we need to get to as well. We have already addressed items that needed action this evening. Please make note, again, this is a workshop, so I'll call everyone's attention to 882. There'll be a public hearing and adoption on 882 on the 21st. There'll be a public hearing and adoption on 883 on the 21st as well. And we now are going to move into, before we get into new business, there is one piece of old business. I need to ask a member of the council to please make a motion pursuant to discussion and privilege session with respect to the Colts Neck Crossing matter. I'd ask that someone please make a motion directing legal counsel.
To do what? It's been a while.
Talk about in executive
I know,
session.
it's been, this is like yesterday.
That's the reconsideration and/or appeal if necessary.
Yes. I make a motion for that.
You make a motion?
I'll second.
All right, so we have a motion and a second to appeal for reconsideration the judge's decision on Colts Neck Crossing.
Or appeal if necessary.
That's correct. Reconsideration or appeal if necessary. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any remarks? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Malavey?
Yes.
Mrs. Showmaker?
Yes.
Mr. Tabasco?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mayor DeBella?
Yes. All right, we're going to move on to new business. I'm going to call everyone's attention to 9A1. This is, we have an introduction on February 21st. 9A2 is the same, 9A3, 9A4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So if anyone has any questions or issues between now and then, I would ask that we obviously raise them to the manager or to the appropriate parties. We've already covered 9B, which are the various resolutions. We have covered 9C, which are the motions. We're going to move into discussion. Under discussion, we have Article 10.1. Mr. Malave, this is yours, sir. I'll turn the floor over to you.
Mr. Mayor, since I don't have access to my laptop, the only comment I could make is that I've been through this before, and I'll repeat my statements or my remarks as previously, which is I would like for us to support a bill in front of the Assembly now. Actually, I'm not sure if it's in front of the Assembly
It's
or
a Senate bill.
It's a Senate bill. Where basically it states that any developer who is found guilty of bribing any township official, whether it's elected or appointed official, that individual will be heavily fined. And I believe, but do not quote me on this because I don't have the information in front of me, that it's up to 5 times the value of the property at the discretion of the judge, obviously, and depending on the seriousness of the case. But I think it would send a message not just to the township officials that accepting such whether it's dinner tickets or money for any consideration of redevelopment or any case pending in front of the zoning planning board or in front of the council, that it shouldn't be allowed or tolerated. So, but we already have these law in place in the township as far as elected officials and so forth. But this goes beyond that. This goes and it hits the developer itself. Because obviously, if there is no offers out there, there wouldn't be any takers. So to me, they're just as guilty as the person who takes the compensation or the bribe. Now, I don't have all the information in front of me, so I apologize for that. But that's basically, in a nutshell, that's basically what it is. Perhaps one of you guys can bring it up and maybe discuss it a little further.
What I can tell you, Mr. Malabi, is based on the backup information we have, I don't know if we don't have the right one, but according to the material that we've got, the bill that is up for discussion is actually Senate Bill 67, and it imposes, according to this material, it says it imposes mandatory minimum terms of imprisonment and a forfeiture of pension and retirement benefits for public officers or employees convicted of crimes involving or touching their office of employment. I think that's the one you're talking about?
Yeah.
Because the other one is a curbs contributions by public contractors and certain developers. We already eliminated no contractor, no developer can contribute in Howell to a candidate or an elected official. So we already have that one. So I think it had to be, and the other one is a prohibition of political contributions by state and local agencies. So I think the one you're talking about is S67.
It was an article in the newspaper in regards to that. It was a big article, one, that stated that anyone, for instance, some of the things that just have gone on in Monmouth County, anyone that was prosecuted and found guilty in their capacity as mayor, council, so on and so forth, in their capacity as that, would then have to give up their pension. They would not be entitled to anything, done nothing. And I think that's a good thing.
Agreed. Yeah, specifically it says, Ms. Malave, that a person holding any public position or office of employment, elective or appointed under the government of the New Jersey, or any agency or political subdivision thereof, who is convicted of an offense shall forfeit their office. If they're convicted of the offense, it then gets into all of the penalties, which are loss of any pension monies that they may have accrued, et cetera, et cetera. And I tend to agree. I don't know what the Senate's disposition is going to be on this, but this is certainly something they should act on.
So are we then in favor of passing a resolution to support this Senate bill?
Yes.
You are. Mr. Walsh, you have any comments?
I'm for passing the resolution, but I'm also for, why can't we put it into our own ordinance?
Well, our ordinance prohibits you from taking this already. And
I
this
would like to see
apply
our
to
own
us.
ordinance strengthened, if at all possible.
I would.
These are crimes and the pension, which we don't have jurisdiction over this particular bill, but.
Well, let's just stick to what's on the table tonight.
Okay.
Do we need to move the
law?
We don't need to move, right? We just.
Well, I mean, is
just
the
pass it.
consensus that we want to issue a resolution in favor of Senator Karcher's bill?
Yes.
Well, first,
Yeah.
do you know if the League of Municipalities has
Haven't
given
seen
its
one.
opinion one way or the other?
I have not seen a bulletin from them.
I haven't seen anything in their magazine.
And the reason you're bringing that up is, Tom, you don't want us. Well, what's the reason?
Well, because generally, I like to see how they look at it, because there's issues. It certainly sounds like it's a good idea. The question is, will they come out and say, well, you can't do it because it's interfering with pension, and the pensions, it gets complicated. But it's a good idea. I just put that out so that everybody has all the information. I don't have my machines down, too, so.
All right, so is
But,
the
I mean,
general
it's not a bad-
consensus we're in favor of this?
We can
Yes.
prepare a resolution for the next meeting if you want.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to direct management to put together a resolution in support.
That's 6-7, right?
Yes,
6-7.
And I'll make that motion.
We have a motion, we need a second.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any remarks? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Malavey?
Yes.
Mr. Showmaker?
Yes.
Mr. Tabasco?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mayor DeBella?
Yes. And just by way of parliamentary note, we are still in regular in that we never got out of regular, so we can continue to take action. All right, 10-2 is a request from the municipal prosecutor, Steve Zabarski, to include 2 additional firm members to be listed as alternate municipal prosecutors. We do have the correspondence. The brief summary is we've appointed the firm. If Mr. Zabarski can't be there, they have a list of people from the firm that typically will go in their stead, and this makes it official. So are there any questions or comments on 10-2 under discussion? Any comments or questions? Okay, hearing none, let's take a roll call, please.
Tom, do we have to do a resolution on the 21st on this?
Yeah, we probably should memorialize it so there's a written record of it.
Okay. All right, so we'll do a resolution.
All right, so then we do not need to take action tonight other than to please
No,
prepare a resolution?
No, it'll be acted on
Okay.
the 21st.
So you'll prepare a resolution. Under 10-3, an evaluation of speeding and traffic fines. Many months back, I unveiled a Slow Down in Howell campaign, and it's gotten a lot of publicity and attention in the municipality, which is a good thing. I would like us to proceed in tripling or doing anything we can to increase all of the traffic and vehicular-related penalties that are under our discretion. I don't know which of them are. I don't know which of them are set by state law. But whatever traffic offenses that we have the latitude to alter to impose the greatest maximum penalty, I'd like us to do it. So, Mr. Davis, I don't know the best way to proceed about doing this. One of the things was I gave you tonight was from Judge Kaplan. That was a piece of legislation, but is this our control, Mr. Gannon, or are these penalties set by state law?
Again, I'm at a disadvantage because I don't have the disc is working, but
You don't have, there's no backup on this.
then I'm on my then I can wing it like I usually do now.
There is no backup.
There's two things. You have jurisdiction to a certain extent over municipal ordinances, which leads into another discussion where I think it would be the consensus that the municipal fines related to ordinance violations, not traffic or speeding, should be raised to the highest level. And we're looking at that in terms of how to do that most efficiently, because we have a lot of ordinances that have separate penalty provisions. So what we want to do is try to do one ordinance, and we have to work with the code company that refers to all the other ordinances in order to make it legal. But to get back to your issue, Mayor, certain fines are set by statute under Title 39, but there are other ones that we have some jurisdiction over, where we get the majority of the fine goes to the township under various acts and for various purposes. So that can be reviewed and a recommendation made with regard to those that we do have jurisdiction over.
So what's the
speeding
best?
tickets we don't have.
We don't have speeding
That's
tickets.
set by Title 39 if you're over 59 or, that
Are
type
there
of thing.
any traffic-related offenses?
There
we
are
have?
some things that we can look at.
Could I ask? what the
Mostly parking and that type of thing.
Oh, parking kind of stuff. Nothing that is moving vehicle related.
I'm not going to say nothing, Mayor. We'll look into it.
All
And there
right.
may be some ones that we can deal with.
I'd like to ask the indulgence of the council to please allow us to have Mr. Gannon's office look at what the law allows us to control so that we could consider increasing those traffic-related fines as high as we can get them. So,
Well, I understand the intent and your exhilaration for wanting to really punish people, but I guess the debate I would have with you just talking out loud about this next time around will be, what's considered cruel and unusual and unreasonable, too. All right, so, if I go 30 in a 25-mile-an-hour zone, am I now going to pay $300 instead of $100? I mean, that's...
no, we're going to let you have a one-on-one with Harry one night, and he'll
Well, no,
he'll
I'm
decide
not
your
saying it's
judgment.
not wrong, but
I won't put anything
somebody goes to court and say, hey, judge, come on.
There won't be any death penalty provisions.
Yeah.
As long as it's not a death penalty provision, I think we should go to the max.
Well, we're not talking about going to the max. We're talking about doubling or tripling what the max is what Joe's getting at.
Whatever is
What
allowed.
what I really want is, my wife grew up in Old Bridge, and there's a street in Old Bridge on Throckmorton Lane. And you know that when you're in Old Bridge on Throckmorton Lane, if you are slightly over the speed limit, within moments of your having hit that pedal, you're getting pulled over. So there's this behavior, and there's a culture, and there's an understanding that when you're in that area, you will not speed. We have another resident of Old Bridge who I see in the audience who's nodding his head and knows this, where he comes from that neighborhood. And I want that culture to be the culture in Howell. If you drive over the speed limit, we're going to give you a ticket, and you're going to pay. Because we hear it at every meeting, traffic-related concerns, speeding-related concerns, kids playing in the streets, and maybe if the penalties are as severe as they can be, people will think twice after they get the first ticket. And maybe if they know that's the case, the behavior and the culture in this town will be, we're not going to speed when we drive through Howell. But you raise a good point. We've got to make certain that they're not. You can't fine somebody $5,000 for going 3 miles over the speed limit, but maybe we can hit them with $4,800. All right, so can we give Mr. Gannon direction to tell us which are the laws we have control over?
Yes.
Is that fair enough, everybody? Okay.
One final word. Do you want us to look at the bringing the local ordinance violations up to the statutory limit?
Absolutely. Okay. Everything should be up to the maximum penalty.
Because some of them are like, they haven't been changed and it's $100, that type of thing. And I think the statute provides up to 1,000 or even more.
Let's bring back the Ordinance Review Committee.
There you go. You can share it. I don't know about that one. All right, let's move on because we're making progress. 10-4, the Villages Association and Road Maintenance. For those that have the data, maybe we can share on. Mrs. Dixell.
You have, Mayor, there's up on the table.
Up on the table. Do I have it too? Hard copy, okay. This is an ongoing discussion. We also have some representatives here from the villages as well, trustees, members of the Men's Club. I'm going to ask Mr. Gannon if you could bring us up to speed. In the nutshell, there has been concern by the villages that they believe the municipality some while back entered into an arrangement binding the township to care for and maintain certain roads. And in fact, one of them specifically says, after the effective date of the ordinance, the Township of Howell shall repair and maintain the streets located within the villages, as described herein and as shown on the subdivision plate, site plans, related documents approved by the Planning Board and Howell Township Committee, creating a said residential development. No such repairs or maintenance shall be undertaken to any parking areas or paved areas not used as thoroughfares. So, and this is signed by Bruce Davis, Township Clerk, and Gerald Levine, who apparently
what year
was the
was that,
mayor.
Mayor?
The year was
1982.
May 12th, 1982. You were a young pup back then, Mr. Davis. So in any event, the crux of the issue is, what aspect of this are we living up to, are we not living up to, and what are our obligations to live up to them?
Go
ahead, Bruce.
First, I think, I didn't see it in the disc there, but Bill Herring was preparing a legal opinion. I'm not sure if we ever got one. Okay, we did.
We have it.
The long and short of it is that there can be an argument made for both sides with regard to what the ordinance meant or didn't mean. I think that we should look at it in terms of possibly dealing with the issue under these circumstances, that the village or it may be a particular circumstance, and that like the policy we've been dealing with on other properties, we may want to look at it from a standpoint of, is there in fact a thoroughfare road that warrants specific attention?
Well, we maintain Dag Hammarskjöld, which is the main thoroughfare.
That's the only real thoroughfare, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, the thoroughfare, and maybe there needs to be a framing of what the thoroughfares are. See, the way I look at it is, our predecessors passed an ordinance that said that we would maintain and repair the roads, and that they would be thoroughfares, and they wouldn't be areas other than parking, and they couldn't be parking areas or other areas not used as thoroughfares. And in fact, in Mr. Herring's note, it says that we have the discretion to change the ordinance and repeal this ordinance and pass a new one. But the problem is the precedent is there. Yeah, I mean, because the ordinance says we would do this, and according to Mr. Herring's note, we would have to pass an ordinance to undo the obligation that our predecessors made with respect to the thoroughfares in the villages.
Can you start it right here?
Well, define.
Can you read that right there?
Yeah, it says the long and short of it is the township is not required to do repair and maintenance on private roads, but may do so in its discretion, since that discretion has been exercised by ordinance. And that is this ordinance, the one from May 12th. It would have to be repealed by ordinance.
Well, even before that, though, I mean, this is a very key sentence here. No such repairs or maintenance shall be undertaken to any parking areas or other paved areas not thoroughfares.
Agreed.
So just comparing this community exactly to Point of Woods, where we have all these streets, Laurelwood Court and Cottonwood Court and Elmwood Court, and they all have the same shape as all these other little streets inside the villages. They are all private roads that Point of Woods homeowners associations have monies taken out that are not thoroughfares, have monies taken out, and we do our own streets. The main road, Point of Woods Drive, is the thoroughfare, much like Dag Hammarskjöld. So there needs to be a definition as to what thoroughfare meant in 1982.
And I think that was Bill, Mr. Nunziato, I think that's been your contention the entire time, that it was only, maybe it was a misinterpretation or it's an interpretation, however the case may be, is that it was Dag Hammarskjöld that we were to do and not the arteries.
And I don't not feel for the people of the village. What I'm saying is every other homeowners association that exists in Howell right now will immediately appeal to have all their courts maintained by the township.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we have to do is understand what are, and I'm going to recognize the gentleman here from the villages. You know, what are those thoroughfares? Because if the ordinance says that we have an obligation to take care of the thoroughfares, then we need to do that.
And we already do Dag Hammarskjöld.
And I guess, are there other roads that might be considered thoroughfares? Or is that all there is?
Well,
Mr. Nunziato?
I actually took a map, and we mapped out all the areas, and there's roughly almost 4 miles worth of roadways in the villages. And if you just equate that to dollars, it's somewhere around $350,000, $400,000 to do an overlay. That doesn't include any of the drainage and the upgrades that the stormwater policies may require. Parking areas, again, they're parking spaces, and quite frankly, it'd be very difficult to try to overlay the roads and not do the parking areas because they're attached to each other. In other words, it slopes from the curve down to the gutter, and then the road slopes, and then it travels perpendicular. So you really can't just not do the parking areas. In that case, that might be anywhere from 80 to 100,000 square feet. I just tried to add it up really quickly. So you might say that's another $100,000 worth of blacktop there. So you may be talking $500,000 or $600,000 to do the entire complex of the village.
In looking at the
Hold on one second. $500,000 or $600,000 to do what?
The entire village.
To pave all of the villages?
Everything.
Okay.
Correct.
That's not to bring it up to date with the wastewater.
When I look at the plats, and this is a layperson's reading of this, Dog Hammarskjöld is the thoroughfare. The rest of it are all private roads within that community. I said Point of Woods, but I'll compare it now to like Moore's Landing, which has Mariners Cove, and I think it's Atlantic Terrace, or no, Admiral's Row is the other main thoroughfares. But all those little courts inside there are all private roads. The plats are at the last several pages here. You got all these little.
Mr. Lariah, would you like to be recognized, or other members of the trustees? Welcome, gentlemen and lady.
Vince Lariah,
Hey,
56C in the Villages. I'm looking for dialogue.
Of course, Mr. Lariah.
Now, of course, we live there, and we say, well, if you drive around, it's a thoroughfare. If you consider where the roads go, maybe some of these could be considered courts, but the design of the roadways pretty much make everything a roadway to our view.
Mr. Lariah, I'll just tell you straight out. Thoroughfares, by my definition, do not have houses on them. They're main routes through the community. Point of Woods Drive has 0 houses on it. All the other courts do. Dog Hammarskjöld has 0 houses on it. All these other roads do. They're private roads in your community. We just had the same thing just a few weeks ago with Eagles Nest Drive, I think it is, in the windmill, where that was a main thoroughfare. There's no houses on Eagles Nest. All the courts inside are private roads. We agreed to do Eagles Nest, but not the rest of the community.
Well, again, see, I see it differently. I see having to drive around a village, and the access in and around the village, that particular village. Remember, we have 6 villages. I see that as a roadway to get from one place to the other.
I understand your point.
Yeah. Now,
but they're really thin.
We have another effect coming up. We're old people. We're
Mr. Lariah, hold on one second. Fellows in the back, I apologize. We can't hear Mr. Lariah.
Stanley and Vinny.
Go ahead, Mr. Lariah.
We're encountering a lot more people are now going to these motorized wheelchairs or whatever, scooters to get in and around the community. Well, with potholes in the street, we're gonna create another safety condition that we're going to have to address sooner or later. To use these relatively small-wheeled vehicles, you hit one of these holes and you're going to throw the driver out into the roadway. I think we can, it's my opinion that we ought to be talking more and see if we can get some arrangement where we can have safe conditions. It's my personal feeling that we don't want it to be pristine, but somehow safe for our residents to get from one place to the next. I came here kind of armed with
Go ahead, Mr. Lariah. Yeah, go ahead, sir.
I came here kind of armed with, well, you know, right now we're paying about $1.5 million in real estate taxes. Now, the budget for the township is what, $40 million? Half of that goes to education.
70%, well, when you, yeah,
Okay.
70% goes
70%.
to.
So
Well, you know, that isn't true. The 40 million is just municipal.
Yeah, that's our.
The Board of
Okay.
Education budget is about $98 million.
So we're paying about, well, let me make another observation. Based on the input we saw or the information we got when we started talking about revaluation, that $1.5 million is going to go up to $2 million, maybe even $2.5 million. So now we're starting to pay a lot more, disproportionately more, I believe, to run the township than any other communities, condo communities specifically. We don't require the township to pay for any of our education because we don't have children living in the community. So we're coming here kind of appealing that we get some help in making our community livable.
Your community already has that recourse, though, through your homeowner's board. It's called the Kelly Bill, where you appeal to the township from a board level to the township. They can reimburse for some of your expenses that you do that otherwise would be done if you were a single-family homeowner in your community, outside of a community, let's say.
See, I'm not.
See me offline, and I'll give you
Sure.
some phone numbers.
Sure.
There's an entity called the Community Associations Institute out of Trenton. You can call them, and they oversee 3,000 separate homeowners associations. And one of the things that was passed in New Jersey about 10 years ago was the Kelly Bill Act, where condo associations and townhome associations, actually any type of association, a common interest ownership association, has the right to appeal to a township to get reimbursed for certain expenses that they're encountering on their own, that otherwise, if they were not part of an association, the town would do, such as street lighting and snow removal and what you're talking about, paving, and some of that does come back to you. Not all of it, but some does.
Snow
you would
removal.
submit those bills to the township, and the township would reimburse you to a certain extent. But that's not none of us agree, or disagree, I should say, with your concern for safety. But we do not want to take on private roads. That just opens up a huge can of worms. We are in a financial crisis as a town. If we take your community on when we're not supposed to, I'm telling you, I'm telling the rest of the council, actually, every single homeowners association will be here tomorrow to have us pay for their expenses too. So you're supposed to be reserving, capital reserves for long-term maintenance and repairs based on engineering studies that you do in your association, and that's supposed to be part of your. And then, as you do something, you would then reevaluate that every 5 years or so. And then your expenses that you have common to your common interest ownership association would then eventually be allowed to be passed on by you partly to the township through this, what they call the Kelly Bill stuff. So we can talk about it more offline, but...
Our capital planning has been based up to this time on the understanding that, or under the conditions that are outlined in that resolution.
That you thought those were township roads.
Yeah.
Mr. Nunziata, I see this road repair list. I know we've spoken about it in the past. Has some of this been here for a long time? I mean, I know we've spoken about some of this.
These are all villages, Bob. We've never contemplated those. That's the whole crux.
Well, some of them I've heard mentioned before, Ms. Long.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
some of them I've heard mentioned before, Maya.
Yeah, the villages has
I.
represented for a while, and Mrs. Dixell, to her credit, has given us a lot of good information, but I think the position has been, through everything that Peter is saying, is other than thoroughfare, we haven't considered them. Is that right, Bill? I mean, we've...
Pretty much. I mean, Doug Hammarskjöld, we had done half of it through about 1997, I would guess, and then we did the other half in about 2001. So Doug Hammarskjöld has been done, and again, the pavement management study that we had, contracted out does not include any of the
Doesn't
other
include the villages.
areas.
Let me attempt to offer this as a compromise. And following the lead of what Mr. Lerai has said is perhaps we can take a conversation offline with representatives of the villages and the municipality around thoroughfares. We know that the street we keep talking about is a thoroughfare. Maybe there's an opportunity to talk about other main roads that over the course of 20 or 25, or what is now in excess of 25 years, have become thoroughfares, for whatever it is. If it's a thoroughfare, we have an obligation, according to this ordinance, to take care of it. If it's not a thoroughfare and it's a one-off street, we're going to be hard-pressed to make that commitment based on what Mr. DeBasco is saying. But I think we probably need an offline working meeting around thoroughfares and coming up with a discussion on those. Would that be a fair way to do it? Get the engineers at the table with you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, I appreciate it, and thanks for your consideration. Okay,
Thank you,
it.
Mr.
Thank
Larian.
you.
We appreciate it. Any other comments on this one? All right, Mr. Davis, could you, through Mr. Larian and the villages, we have their council's number in this letter. Let's set up a sidebar meeting and let's have Mr. Nunziato lead the conversation of what's the thoroughfare. What are the thoroughfares, if it's plural? And let's see if we can't find some compromise. Is that okay? And then you come back to us around what's the thoroughfares.
First we're gonna define what a thoroughfare is.
Yes.
That's correct. Well, you'll do whatever prep work you'll spare us the detail. You'll do your prep work to get ready for the meeting. You'll sit down with them. They'll come to the table. It'll be a good exchange of ideas, and we'll see what we can come up with together. All right?
Okay.
Okay, 10-5. This is the Route 33 bypass. I did ask that this be on. I'm going to be brief. Yeah, it's the non-pass. I would like us to see if we can't come up with some solution around a traffic light. I can't tell you how many people who live in that area have come to us.
It's dangerous.
We've got testimony from the commissioner of the fire commissions of the Adelphia Fire Company. We've had representation from the Howell Farmingdale First Aid Squad. That use to that bypass is essential, and yet it's closed. So we've got to find a way to do this.
I would just counter that the reason why the light wasn't put in was that our traffic safety official said it was dangerous. But what we can do, I mean, the state put that guardrail in without ever talking to us. We get rid of the guardrail and put pylons there that the EMT vehicles can go right through, just like they can in Winston Park. Then it can actually still use the highway.
That's probably a good idea. That's probably a very good idea. So that
it's a very inexpensive solution too.
At a minimum, if the fire service and emergency management, if they're up on Buckaloo and they got to get somebody to Central State, they can drive right. See that isn't the issue so much. It's really they can get on.
They can get off 33. Yeah.
They can get on. They need to get off, not get on. Well, I don't know what the answer is, and I don't know that the five of us know what the answer is. But the answer, at least in my view, is not to just barricade it off and tell us it's going to cost us $500,000 to buy a whole bunch of property and put a clover in, and it's never going to happen.
That's a monumental
It's never going to happen.
undertaking to do.
Can we put a light in front of where the railroad tracks are? Can we put a light someplace else? There's got to be a way to do this.
You had three options, as I recollect. One was to run, because I'm tell you, off the exit ramp,
Okay to go
run a
home.
parallel road to Vanderbilt, and you make a cross intersection there and realign that intersection anyway, which would have helped the other individual right on the point. The other was to a traffic light, as you indicated, and the other one was to totally redesign the exit ramp, which was categorically rejected. They were all rejected,
They
actually.
were all, that's
But the
thing.
only one that I thought had any legs was the traffic light. And that's what I suggested, I don't know, 3 years ago.
I'm with you.
I think we all strongly suggested that.
Now,
However, we were shot down by
My only feeling is, now I understand that the sight distance is insufficient. However, as we've all seen on blind curves where there's a traffic light at the end of the curve, before you hit the curve, there's a flashing light that says red signal ahead. It lights up when the light lights up, so you know it. So if you put that signage on the other side of the bridge before you get to the crest, you'll know there's a traffic light. I think there's ways around it. I just think they don't want to do it.
I have
They're mad at us.
I have to tell you
Well, they're always mad
that
at us.
every time I come down 524 and approach Halls Mill Road, there is no difference in the way you approach that, and you see that because you have no forewarning. If you're a newcomer in that area, you do not know that light's there until you are right on top of it. To me, there is no difference in the sight distance there, and they put a light there, than on 33. And Does anybody go down here and travel that?
Absolutely.
It's the same scenario.
You'd be merging onto Halls Mill coming off 33.
It's the same scenario, site distance.
Oh, you know what? Hold on a second.
We'll get to you. I promise. I'll get to your fourth comment. I'm interested in it. We're all interested in it. Were you going to finish saying? Who was talking?
No, when you get off of 33 heading east onto Halls Mill Road heading south, that is a pretty blind merge. I understand what's in. There's no light there, though. It's just
No,
a
when you're
blind
coming
merge.
down 524, approaching Route 9, right outside the Adelphia Greens.
Oh, my God.
They put a light there.
Oh,
They put the
okay.
light at the
Well,
end of
that's
Halls Mill right
temporary.
here. And let me tell you something. When you're coming down that road, because I live there, I travel
Mhm.
that road every day, many times a day. Even in the morning, you forget about the amount of traffic there. I don't care how slow
Forget
you're
the
going,
lights there.
because from this light to this light, you don't understand. There is no approach to that light. Boom, you're right on it.
Mhm.
And people, all the time, it's not this, because there's no sight. You have to go kind of around it. Same situation is on 33 when you're coming off there, when you're coming up across the railroad tracks. It's exactly the same situation, same line of sight. I don't know why.
Mayor, is the concern there that if you put a light there, that the traffic will back up so much so that
Over the railroad track.
it will be over the railroad track? So
Right by that house.
It would be over the railroad track, and then there's concern about. Oh, actually, you know what? Mr. Nunziato can give us
I mean, I don't
the
understand what the
technical
concern
with
is
the
putting
light.
a light there.
Right.
Well, it was really a twofold. Part of it is the fact that for the speed that the traffic does move, that the reaction time would not be what's required to make it safe. In other words, you wouldn't be able to see it until you got down the hill, which may or may not be, the case. One of the other things, and this is really the key, is that the DOT does have the jurisdiction here. I mean, if we come up with the greatest idea in the world, if they're not going to support it, it's not going to go anywhere. And that's
what happened
really,
3 times already.
that's
Yeah,
really
it's
why
happened.
we had all these meetings, meeting after meeting at the DOT, and we had some really good ideas. and-
If could they make a right turn out of there at least if we open it up for right turn only?
Well,
Off the
again,
exit.
based on the traffic counts and the speeds, the reaction time, and to have a safe, someone coming out and making a right turn. Again, that was designed for actually a left and not a right, okay, when they designed it.
No, it's designed for a left, and you can't see. So when you're coming up, you can't.
Right, I
That's
understand
the
that.
problem. Well, look, it sounds like we have some ideas around a light.
I think, thinking about it realistically, the only shot we have is as an EMT unit, off on-ramp. The rest of it is just a big cluster, you know what, and it's not going to get done. It's
Well,
not going to happen. But
I
we
think
could
we-
maybe petition that our
Yes.
EMT vehicles need access to that road through pylons. Can we at least get the guardrail down and put up pylons? And maybe the DOT will go with that. The rest of the fight is just too expensive and too...
Well, I mean, is it worth it to send them a letter requesting, we want, on an immediate basis, we want pylons, and on a secondary basis, we want a light?
They didn't refuse a light. They didn't say a light wasn't,
Doesn't mean-
it come from our traffic study.
It doesn't meet, they'll tell us it doesn't meet the warrants and the site distance is insufficient.
But again, too, maybe 5 or
told us
10
that.
years down the road, the potential may be there, which increased traffic volumes and traffic patterns and a traffic study. But again, right now, there's no money to do it. We can't acquire additional properties. We can't widen roads. The geometry is there. The right-of-ways are what they are. They can't be expanded
All right,
upon.
so in light of what you've said, I mean, short of, hitting the lottery, this doesn't look like it's a possibility. But the deputy mayor's point is right on. We have a responsibility to see to it that we can accommodate emergency management response. So can we at least petition them? Let's copy in Bob Singer. Senator Singer got us an audience with the DOT
Right.
a couple of months back. We had a front row seat with all the right people to make the decisions. Can we at least ask for their indulgence to do that? We agree, council?
I'm fine.
Now, the only benefit would be to get off the road and onto Halls Mill to get to the residents. It wouldn't be to go to the hospital, though. That would be a way to get off and into the neighborhoods faster.
I don't mean to put him on the spot. We have a member of the Howell Farmingdale First Aid Squad, Mr. Good. Would you come up for a minute, Mr. Good? Just,
Is Halls Mills or Howell Road? It's Howell. What are we talking about?
Yeah.
Howell Road.
and I'm going to give this gentleman has a fourth idea. We're interested in
Howell
hearing
Road
it.
we're talking about.
It's Howell Road. Yeah,
How-
it's,
yeah,
it's
not
5 points.
Howell
from
Road, yep.
I'm sorry, Mr. Good. What are your thoughts on this?
My thoughts are is that a lot of times we will be at Central State and we will get another call back in town. And the fastest way is going down 33.
Right.
And we can get in off of that ramp, if it was open,
Right, so there is some.
and a lot of times, just as a coincidence, a lot of times our calls are either in Surrey Downs or the Villages. So that's the fastest way in.
Okay.
I think
off there.
that's a battle we might be able to win. The other battle I don't think we're going to win. This
Thank you.
battle we might win.
That's a good point. All right, I think Peter's comments are out of the mark. They need to see pylons that only an ambulance can get through and not an SUV. And can we proceed in that direction, Mr. Davis? Sure. Okay. Any other comment? Sir, did you want to quickly give us the fourth idea?
Yeah. Come up to the mic.
Come on up. Just give us your name, and I'd ask if you don't mind if you could be as concise as possible.
Yeah, no problem. My name is Dennis Paris. I live on.
Go ahead and sit.
Yeah, just try and talk to the mic.
Sure. My name is Dennis Paris.
Hi,
I live
Mr.
on
Paris.
26 Camelot Drive. My thought on the.
Yeah, you still have to talk. You got
I still got to talk into the mic.
Right.
Okay.
We're being recorded. So.
Okay. My thoughts on the thing, and I'm not sure if you guys shared it with DOT, Department of Transportation, but if you look at 524, 524A, we have a lot of blind curves, we have a lot of tough spots. And if you look at the gentleman mentioned about the traffic flow and the anticipated speed, so if it's 40, 45 miles an hour, that's what's regulated by the state. But if you notice, a lot of times you'll have the recommended speed. Those are the gold signs. Mm-hmm. You can take that down to 25, 35 miles an hour. So DOT, I think, they got slapped pretty hard between the police department, and deservingly so. I think they did a poor job there. But if you take a look at that and say, hey, maybe you want to petition that, you can kind of regulate the traffic speed there by putting in the recommended speed sign and only show that. And again, maybe the caution light is not a bad idea. So between a caution light just before you approach the bridge, recommended gold signs at 35 miles an hour versus 45, hey, maybe that's just enough between doing the traffic study and not cut you loose. I didn't hear that as being one of the options.
Is Mr. Nunziato, is that an option?
Well, even a warning light would be something that would require DOT approval on. So,
but what about the speed signs? In other words, you put up the gold sign at 35 miles an hour. You see that in Farmingdale. As you go around St. Catherine's Church, the recommended speed is 15 with a caution light. Doesn't mean you have to do both, but that just slows everybody down. Most of the people probably in the audience don't know there's a difference. You just see the speed sign and you try to adhere to it.
One of the things we did talk about when we were with the DOT on this point is we asked them, upon approaching the light, can there be a signal that says traffic light ahead? Now, I happen to commute quite a bit up and down Route 9 in the Sayreville-Old Bridge area, and as you're going over what is a blind spot, you're kind of going up a hill, there's a signal that cautions you to prepare to slow down because the signal is red, say 1,000 feet ahead of you, you can't see it. We asked if we could do something like that, and they sort of dismissed it. They're all good observations, and we should build them into our correspondence to them. But
the point I'm making is there's no power, there's no utilities associated with putting up a sign.
Correct.
And maybe they just receptive to that and they cut you loose. I don't know. Just an idea.
We appreciate it.
I kind of want to wrap this up. Yep. We want to go to the DOT well for major things. If we're going to ping them for too many things, we're not going to get anything. So I'm saying, just as usual, let's pick our battles. And I think a good battle to go to them with is that we have emergency services saying they really need access to get off of 33 and onto Howell Road. That one we might win.
All right, I think we have consensus. Mr. Davis, you'll put that to a correspondence and copy the council, please?
Yes, okay. I'm sure DOT would be agreeable to put a light in if we told them we'll pay for it.
Well, okay. But let's get at least the pylons in right away. All right, 10-6, we all have had a copy of the Freewood Acres sanitary sewer letter. We've had it for quite some time. It should not require a lot of discussion. Does anyone have any comments or amendments to the letter?
So they don't have this yet?
No, I brought it to you in October.
That's why.
And there was some discussion, a couple of changes you wanted to see, which we made. In the meantime, Jeffrey came back with, one thing was a correction, which has been done in the final letter. But his memo is attached. He says that in the third paragraph, a statement is made that the assessment will be paid over a 10 to 20-year period interest-free. Since we would have to bond for this construction project and incur interest costs, and since the area to serve is houses, the customer will be paying the newly reduced rate. I do not feel the sewer utility will be in a position to absorb the interest cost of a $4 million bond without adversely affecting the rates. What he's saying is it may require a rate increase.
Unless you build it into what they
Unless
will
you
pay.
build the interest into it.
Well, that's probably what you would do.
I
How much is it going to raise it? From 8,700 to 8,900?
He didn't say. He didn't give me the calculation on that.
We need
More
to
than
know
that.
that.
That needs to be in there and changed.
Yeah, but more than that, Peter, Council, really, when you look at the numbers, no one's giving you $8,700 for 20 years for $200. If they are, I'll line up. Okay? They're not doing it.
Well, I don't necessarily disagree. I just want to know what the numbers are so we can make an educated decision as a
How
council.
soon can we know that? Because I've got residents that are calling and emailing me regularly, as you have seen, saying, where's the beef? We want to vote.
Every time they got to fix their septic, it's 10,000.
I could probably get the number from Jeff tomorrow.
Can you get the number, maybe send it home in a packet, and then we can act on this one way or the other on the 21st?
Okay.
I mean, is that fair? I mean,
Yeah.
yes, no, everybody agree?
Absolutely.
All right, and I would ask that if anyone has any other technical comments to the letter, get them to Mr. Davis. This way, when this comes up on the 21st, we're only talking about the interest issue, and we don't have to deliberate the 3-page letter.
Yeah, I mean.
Everybody agree?
Yes.
Okay. All right, the next one is 10-7. We have correspondence from Lakewood Township. Lakewood Township is interested in buying COA obligations that we have, RCAs. So this obviously is a good thing.
It's a good thing as long as we already haven't met our RCA quota.
We have apparently under round 3, I don't believe we have, and we can satisfy up to 50% of our COA obligation using RCAs.
So just generally, to keep this short, it's a good thing for any that we have extras to give them.
I mean, my recommendation is, just to move this along, is that we should take this letter from Irvin Oros, who is the Director of Community Development, forward it to our Citizens Advisory Group on Affordable Housing Issues, and
To the COA board.
to our COA planner and the COA attorney, and say, figure out a way to fit it in the plan.
COA
Right, we agree?
The COA
Advisory Board.
Yeah.
And Mr. Madden and Mr. Lehrer, and say, go try and work out the details.
Done.
Everybody agree? Good.
Yes.
Okay. The next few items, do we need to take action on these tonight, Mr. Davis? Can we push off these petitions and correspondence to get the public, because it's getting late?
Well, I need you to.
Bless you.
It's okay. I need you to acknowledge receipt of the Green Acres Fund's notice.
Okay.
On the record that you received it, and it's been listed on the agenda, which I'm now saying, so you don't have to.
Okay. Do you need us to take action? What are you going to do on this? You're going to submit something?
It's a general notice.
Okay.
About Green Acres funding, and it has to appear on an agenda, and it has to be acknowledged. And
All right, so let the record clearly reflect that the mayor and council are in receipt of the Green Acres funds, correspondence dated January 2006, the deadline being April 14, 2006. Township management will act appropriately to ensure that we fulfill any and all obligations with respect to submissions for monies. Does that satisfy it?
Thank you.
All right, let's carry 11, 1, 2, and 4 to the 21st, and we're going to now go into public portion. Let the record reflect it's 11:15. We have 13 people who have put down to speak. However, just visually, I know that some of the people have since left. The first person is Mike Dillon. Mr. Dillon's still here. Good evening, Mr. Dillon, and welcome. It says you'd like to talk about farm buffer vacations. So if you just please sit right at that mic is on, and just give us your name and address for the record.
My name's Mike Dillon. I live at 12 Anthony Way. I've been here a few times concerning my farm buffer. The council and the mayor has changed since the last time I was here. I have my survey if anybody wants to see it. But as far as I remember, the last time, it seemed like the council and the mayor were in agreement that we should do something, but then the township lawyer decided that it would be better if we waited for the map to be filed, which I believe is filed now, so I'm back.
It's not completed yet.
All right. Since we apparently weren't here the last time you were here, what is it that you're looking for the governing body to do?
Well, I have a farm buffer that comes up to the back of my house, and I was looking for some relief.
What's your
from
address
it.
again, just for?
12 Anthony Way.
Anthony?
Yeah.
Just by history of a background, Mr. Dillon lives in Embassy Estates, which had backed up to the farm, which is now developed by Toll Brothers off West Farms Road. The project, the Toll Brothers project, now has filed the map, and they have, in essence, started constructing the project. When Mr. Dillon had first come to us, he said, well, you know, the property has been under contract by Toll Brothers, it's going to be a subdivision, it's no longer a farm, can I get relief? And the question really became, on the filed maps, granted it does show a farmland buffer, by virtue of the fact that it's now a development, is no longer a farm, the question is, well, does the farmland buffer now just disappear because it's no longer a farm? Although with Mr. Dillon and his neighbors, there's it's deed restricted property. And from a legal perspective, normally the easement rights have to be vacated by the council, which typically we do on a semi-regular basis. And I guess at this point now, Mr. Dillon's back because the map has been filed, which in effect, you know, renders it not a farm adjacent to this property. Therefore, there's just a formality, I suppose, of vacating the deed restriction on his property and his neighbor's properties.
Well, let's ask Tom a question then. When Bill says just a formality, Tom, what are the steps to overdo a deed restriction?
I really wasn't prepared to address the legal issues involved. I just wanted to find out what the problem was. But normally if you have a dedication, you can do a vacation ordinance for streets and that type of thing. Whether you could utilize the same mechanism to vacate the farmland buffer, you could probably do it if it was able to be filed in a manner that a title searcher would find it. That's my only thinking out loud here. You may be able to just file in a vacation book like we do with roads and that type of thing. But, you know, these are always difficult issues once the map has been filed, but at the same time you can't deal with it until the easement becomes filed. So it's a dilemma. But that may be one way if we get the block and lot. Maybe there's a parcel map we can attach to it, and I'm not sure how many other lots are involved that were supposedly aligned next to the farm. I mean, we've had, you know, this is one of those issues with our Farmland Right to Farm Act with regard to the buffers that we've given.
I want to make sure I clearly understand it. Would Toll Brothers, or whoever actually owns the lot now opposite his lot, would that party be party to this vacating of the deed restriction as well?
Well, obviously, if the restriction is on the adjacent property, that would have to be involved too.
Can we digress for just a moment so that we have a clear issue here? Because I recall, and you correct me because you're the attorney, and
I don't have a recollection.
Okay.
Of,
as I recall
this
it, and I'm going to use the same scenario. Do you know where I live, Bill? All right. I have a 50-foot buffer behind my house because right now there is farmland. However, there's an application, and you know, it's an ARE2 area. There's application for housing to go back there. It's my understanding that once those houses go up and that map is filed, that's deemed complete and that's filed, then that farmland buffer is vacated. That's how it was explained. Is that incorrect?
That's the way it should work when you have a new subdivision coming in to replace an existing farm.
Okay.
So that when that subdivision map is filed, that should take care of all the problems with any buffers,
Right.
because at that point you don't have a need for it.
Now, to go back to his conversation, I recall the situation was much similar. However, at the time, that map was not filed for some reason. There was something that was holding up for the final. It was a legal issue, and the map wasn't filed. But it was my understanding that once that map was filed, that the same scenario would be appropriate for that particular part. And it would be all those properties that abutted that were in that buffer zone.
That's the way it appears, and if that in fact happened, then it's just cleaning up the adjacent property owners' properties that may show an easement on there. And then we may be able to vacate it based on the blocking lots.
Do you recall that conversation, Bill?
Yeah, I do, and I've still raised the question back then as I do now. I mean, granted, I understand if there's a subdivision adjacent to your property, it no longer is a farm use, but again, the deed restriction is on his property, or in your case, your property.
Right.
So how that would automatically vacate by virtue of a subdivision approval, again, it's a legal mechanism and not one that makes sense to me as an engineer, so that's why we have time.
Oh, I'll be very interested in to hear that, yeah. Could, Mr. Gannon, when do you think we could get back to him so he knows where we're going?
We'll put it in the pipeline, and I think, I don't know if I don't even have any information, so I'm going to have to make sure that I get that.
Okay. Bill,
When people come up here, we
Right.
have to have background information.
Bill, do you think you can provide background information for Mr. Gannon?
I could give the filed map for Embassy Estates, which depicts their farmland buffer, and certainly that one section of the map for the Toll Brothers project. Absolutely, sure.
Okay.
And we had submitted a letter with the lot and block numbers and the signatures of all the
Homeowners.
residents, and
they asked
Mr.
for that.
Davis has that.
When was that submitted, you know?
That was a couple years ago at this point.
I don't have my stuff from last week, you know.
Well,
But anyway,
I've been trying.
What we have to do, though, is, and maybe there's some kind of mechanism we can deal with these issues. Years ago, I guess before this governing body, there was an ordinance, or just at the time the governing body was taking place, that allowed for specific backyards, notwithstanding any buffers, because the problem is that the subdivisions are created. There was no provision specifically for a backyard in terms of depth or area. And then people would go to the building department, they'd look at all the deed restrictions and say, by the way, your farmland buffer goes up to your, French doors. And, I don't know if this is this particular
That's
problem.
my
but-
house.
Yeah. We need to be able to find them relief somehow. It's not a farm there no more, but it's also a 300-foot buffer?
No, it's a 50-foot buffer.
Farmland is 50 feet.
But it's up to your back door.
That
Yeah,
was-
comes right up to.
But I think one of the concerns was that we were vacating farmland buffers while there was still possibility of farms being built, and that created another issue.
Okay.
Okay, so, my opinion would be that if we pass an ordinance that vacates it according to a specific block and lot, and maybe some kind of reference to subdivision, we can file it, hopefully that can do it. But somebody better certify there's no longer a farm there.
Okay.
Unless you want me to go out there and make an inspection.
Maybe some vegetable gardens and flower gardens in those backyards.
So, Tom, you're going to look into this and get back to us, is what it comes
Yeah, well,
down to.
my advice would be that, A, I get the deeds on both sides of the property, the resolutions, et cetera, and somebody's going to certify that it's no longer a working farm, and then I can prepare an ordinance similar to what we do to vacate a street easement, only we'll be vacating a farmland easement.
Yeah.
Great.
All right, so Mr. Delia, maybe you want to leave your phone number with Bruce, and when we get word, he can call you up and give you some update.
Sure.
Is there how many lots are affected by it?
I can't remember. I think it was about 7 or 8, something like that.
All right, so we'll do it for all those adjacent contiguous lots.
Okay.
You may want to leave your name and phone
Yeah,
number with
Mr.
Mr.
Pasco just said that.
Nunziato.
Just leave your,
Okay.
you have it? All right. So how much time do you roughly need, Mr. Gannon?
30 days.
How much time might you need on this, just to set set?
We can probably have it for introduction and, or at least put it out for the next workshop.
Okay.
March 4th. 7th.
March 4th.
Okay.
Right. Once we get it straight, it's not a big deal to prepare the ordinance.
So the best thing for me to do is come back here on March 4th and see what's
7th.
going on?
March 7th.
7th?
March 7th. And might we be able to get him something in advance that night to know?
advance of that.
Right, well,
Be nice for
I'll
me
deal
to
with the
get an answer.
manager's office and the engineers, and they
Okay.
can deal with the individual.
So you leave your number, they'll begin to look at it, you'll hear from us before the 7th, and hopefully we'll be in a
Okay.
position to
Now,
start acting
Mr.
on it.
Nunziato has my number. Should Mr. Davis needs it also, or is that?
As long as someone has it, I...
Yeah, Mr. Nunziata, you'll share, without putting it out in the World Wide Web, you'll share his phone number? Absolutely. Okay, terrific. Thank you for your
Appreciate it.
patience.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Librio. It says, school letters and ordinances. Hello, Mr. Librio, welcome.
It is almost that time.
As always, just give us your name and address.
Mayor, Council, how are you?
Good, Mr. Labria.
Okay. Most of my conversation is going to be about ordinances. One that I wasn't going to talk about, but maybe can share a little information. I remember the Ordinance Review Committee discussing penalties and fines, and I believe that we are subject to state statute where the maximum, I think it's either $1,350 or $1,500, but the judge's discretion can only go from any point up to the max. So I don't know if that'll help you out or not.
I think they actually might have raised it to 2,000 or something like that.
Yeah.
A recent law. But I still have my ORC files, John, so I'll be referring to them.
You still have them, but you haven't read them.
I have. I read them on occasion. I get paid by the word, So I gotta,
Okay. I have a couple of ordinances that I'd like to see maybe you would, I'd like to propose some amendments to some ordinances. The first one in particular was one that I brought up last year as part of the Ordinance Review Committee, and then as on an individual basis just before you passed your ethics ordinance. A proposal to amend Chapter 18 Code of Ethics and Conduct 18-1. Under definitions, I'd like to see you include domestic partner under the family member definition. It's not in there now. I have a copy for you for that.
Please, yeah, leave that with
Okay.
Mr. Davis, and that's an appropriate addition. domestic
Yes.
partner.
The next one is in conjunction with all the buzz that's out there concerning the appointments to the Mercer. And maybe for the future, so we won't have to go through this again, I was looking to propose an amendment to Chapter 18 under the Ethics and Conduct Code of 18-3, Code of Ethics Provisions. Part A, there's a sentence 5, should include appointed party and elected officials. And then under sentence 6, Part A, it should include appointed party and elected officials.
Basically taking all the gray out.
Absolutely.
Good.
The next proposal.
The only thing I would comment while
Yes.
we're having a discussion here is that, and that can be done, and that's, but one of the issues that we would have to address, and assuming that I think that, it's ethically, it's something that governing body should consider, is that with regard to Marissa specifically, that statute allows a sitting member to be appointed. Now, I don't know if that makes a difference one way or the other, but that sometimes we have to look at whether or not they're going to bump into each other, so to speak, and one would supersede the other. So I'm just raising that. I mean, I have no problem drafting whatever you think you do, but I mean, that's like an irony in the law there, that it seems that...
Well, you're saying you're concerning a seated member, right?
Yes.
Okay.
In other words, if someone here wanted to be on the Marissa under the old sewage authority law in which Marissa was established, they could be appointed.
Right, but what I'm talking about here, Tom, is the ordinance concerning an official after they leave office.
Right, and I'm just saying that's a...
Oh, okay.
I just try to look ahead, that if someone ever challenged it and said, well, how come it's, if you were a former, we'd have to have some kind of rationale, that's what I'm just saying. If someone
we can
who's...
debate that another night.
If someone who's sitting there. But
Actually, I could see some merit to having a current person on the board because they have the best interest of the town at heart, for sure.
Right. I'm just raising the issue. I'm not taking a position one way or the other, but that's a legal issue that, it's been
All right.
raised.
There's another proposal to amend under the General Code of Conduct for Township employees and officials. Sentence 3 should include or appointed, and Part E, Sentence 1 should also include elected, appointed, or, as it says elected.
John, what's the specific chapter
18
you're referring to?
18-4, Part D. Upon the effective date of this ordinance, the manager shall be prohibited from hiring a member of his family or her family to any position with the township. Family members of any members of the governing body are prohibited from being hired by the township during the course of their term as an elected official. I wanted that changed to appointed also. This prohibition shall continue for a period of 12 months immediately following the vacation of office by the elected official. I want appointed in there also.
So basically, if you were a member of the governing body, either elected or appointed, you would be covered under the ordinance?
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's what I wanted to define on this. And then the next, not to go into detail, the next amendment to part of that ordinance also includes putting in the wording for appointed as well as elected. Okay. Under 9A7 that you have listed here tonight, the residency requirement liaison representative to the township. You guys are going to be having a hearing and adoption on that on the 21st. But another thing that I wanted to, I don't know how much this applies to this, but I think that anything to do with this MRSA is under the auspices of state statutes. And I don't know if you on a municipal level are allowed to.
We can.
You can. Okay,
We
that's why
have-
I didn't know. That's
we have
why I
the
brought it up.
latitude- Yeah, it's a good point. We have the latitude of determining the residency requirement. So we can make it a law that you have to live in the town or that you don't.
Okay.
Yeah, there's, the statute is silent on it, which is kind
Yeah,
of ironic, but there was a case that came down from the appellate division that said that municipality has the authority to require a residency at appointment and during the term, even though it's not in statute. Because
Yeah.
in that case, the person left and the
I know, I have
appellate
a
division
copy in here of the whole statute, and I couldn't find anything in there to do
No,
with it. But I felt that since it's a state statute, I thought that we fell under their guidance for everything.
No, you're right, because that's the sewage authority law, and that there's an appellate division case that came out of Neptune.
Okay.
Good.
All right, and last but not least, I mean, concerning the Board of Education and their budget, which came before the council last year, I just wanted to bring it to your attention that part of their budget concerning Xerox machines and copies, they are limited to the number of copies that the company allows them to make. In other words, they pay so much out of that budget for the copies they make for the children for school things, okay? My two daughters, who I have all grandkids in schools, presented me with this letter concerning the upcoming budget, and also a copy of the voter registration application that they printed, all on school paper, okay? The voter registration can be obtained by these people calling up the Board of Elections to get a copy. There was no reason for them to waste the money of the taxpayers out of our budget to be making copies of this, to push the issue for that
That's a
budget.
good point. Have you brought that to the board yet?
No, I haven't brought it to the board yet. I wanted to bring it to your guys' attentions first. I haven't had the opportunity, but I will bring it to
Good.
their attention. And there was also other paraphernalia sent to them under the same thing through the mail.
Mail?
Yes, so I don't have that with me tonight. I wasn't able to get a copy from my daughters in time, but they are sending through the mail information also. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
You'll leave copies of the other stuff with Mr.
Yes,
Davis
you
for
you
us,
can have
please?
this one. Okay, that's all I have, Ryan.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Librio. Just want to go through, I think, Mr. Lariah, did you want, you're good. Let me just go through this, because a couple of people that I know are still here that want to talk. So we got Mr. Librio. Mr. Ryan, are you here? Mr. Ryan is not here. Mr. Mistari, you're good? We've got Mr. Lariah. Nancy Condogardo, I think, spoke already. We've got Mr. Diller. All right, so we have Mr. Magid, Mr. Good, Mr. Dwyer. Go ahead, Mr. Magid. You're up. Welcome.
Yes, I'm Abe Magid, 89 Mariners Cove in Howell, although the postal, of course, is freehold, as you're aware. I'm going to ask some short, concise, specific questions. A few. After which, depending on the responses, I will have some short comments. First question. And I want to know, when I ask this question, I need the opinion of Thomas Gannon, the attorney. Must have that. So we'll have to wait, I guess, if he's not here.
He's coming back in now.
Fine. Okay, well, let's not.
He's here.
Let's not break the point. On the question I'm going to ask, there can be a definite yes, or a definite no, or somewhere in between with explanation. But in addition, if it should be a yes, I want to know that it is based on prior legal precedent. Now comes the question. Howell Township is in the process of considering some changes that presently exist for what is called the distance of the buffer zone. It has been stated that it will never affect any C1 waterway in Howell Township, and C1 at this time is a specific, at least for the moment, by the DEP. Now, other than C1, there are other waterways not designated as C1. My question is, if from the present 300-foot buffer, that amount for waterways that are other than C1 is reduced, and we're not talking about the amount of reduction at this time, and here comes the question. Can Howell Township then, for all waterways that are not C1 and reducing whatever amount is the buffer, be selective of where they choose that to apply and not to apply, and can that stand up legally? That's my question now, if you would ask our attorney for a response.
Mr. Gannon, would you give a response, please?
Well, I'm assuming you're dealing with the riparian buffer zones that were originally promulgated by state law, and they deal with the C1s. That's the
I'm not dealing with C1s at all. No, there's been a misunderstanding of my question entirely. We eliminate for consideration anything to do with C1.
Okay.
Presently, non-C1 waterways have in Howell Township, have a certain distance. I believe it's 300 feet. If Howell Township, for waterways that are not designated as C1, and if that is decided to be reduced, is it legal for Howell Township then to choose which of these non-C1 waterways they would reduce or lower that buffer distance and still insist on maintaining it on the others? I'd like a legal response whether that can be done or not be done, or whatever is your response. And would that response be based on prior legal precedent for this type of activity in the state of New Jersey?
Well, I don't know if there's a case on point with regard to this type of buffer, but there are number of cases that allow municipalities to insert regulations that either supplement or encourage a similar type of regulation that the state has, even though the state's not covering it. So to answer your question, if you do a legislative scheme that addresses the issues and you're able to either put in averaging in there or some type of mitigation, and it's rational and it meets the what they call a rational nexus test, then I believe you probably could, but you'd have to not arbitrarily just pick and choose how to apply the regulations and ordinance. You'd have to have some kind of mechanism to allow for a deviation, if that's what you're saying.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I have heard the legal response.
Yes.
And now I make a comment. We would be at the mercy, and it would end up in the courts probably, if we then, based on what Thomas Gannon just said, well, we'll take this non-C1 waterway and make it, let's say, whatever number of feet less, but retain others. Because for what I just heard, it is anything but a firm, absolute thing. We'd come up with rationales. We could be challenged by somebody who would claim, wait, you're biasing against me. I have land here. Look at this guy. He has a buffer that is a shorter distance, and I have not. Now comes my comments based on what I just heard, which was not a definitive, absolute yes. And it goes like this. First of all, the non-C1 waterways are above, or rather north, of West Farms Road. When you go south of West Farms Road, you run into almost entirely, and I'm not going to bother you at this time naming the waterways because I know them cold. I'm sure I don't have to spend that time with you now. Now, what happens is this. I specifically delineated to our planner, Charles Newcomb, at a meeting that he attended and you can absolutely check with him, of course you will, that there is no part of the Route 9 corridor that can benefit in any way from this reduction of the buffer. And I stand ready at any time, and I'm on record, to meet with you and show you exactly why that is so. It's late, I've waited a long time, I want to finish my comments. Thank you. Now, when I made that specification to Charles Newcomb, he didn't refute it, and he couldn't. He said, well, there's Route 33. Now, again, if you look at Route 33, just the other day, Crawford Holdings, who they claim in the article is over 300 acres, I found 187, it's big enough, straddles several of these waterways, non-C1, that eventually, of course, end up, as everybody does, in the Manasquan River. And if it's 300 acres, it'll straddle even more. Of course, I looked at Block 182 and all the Block 182 and all the lot numbers I could find for 187. Now, these non-C1 waterways, if you look at the western part of Howell, where Route 9 quickly cuts into Freehold, you still go a considerable amount north on Adelphia Road. Waterways. They go to Longbrook, which ends up in the Manasquan River right at the point where you have that oxbow. And this western contiguous border of Howell that abuts, we already have one touch of lightning. There could be many more. I'm going to wind up this now and say this. You are creating a situation of total disaster if you think that you can say, in order to gain ratables for a commercial, which doesn't even exist on Route 9, but somewhere on Route 33, and open that door wide to developers, as one has already done, and there could be a whole flood along that western border of Howell that will devastate the houses contiguous to that Manasquan River, at least in that area. Now, a report will be coming to you, I know, from Charles Newcomb, of which I understand I can get a copy of tomorrow. And I say this to you in the firmest way. It's not a question of 75 feet, or 100 feet, or 150 feet. Maintain that 300-foot buffer for all non-C1s, because if you start to pick and choose, as I just heard Mr. Gannon say, you're opening the door to total disaster for residents in that northwestern part of Howell that's contiguous to Freehold, and before you move even an inch, much less feet, for non-C1 waterways, don't do it, because it's total disaster to follow in courts if you try to be selective where you want to be. And if you open it to all, you will have a total flood disaster, certainly in Moore's Landing, and who knows what other areas. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
Thank
Megan. Okay.
I'll hear comments if there's any comments.
No. No?
No comments?
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Good's not in the room.
I'd like to make sure I get that report though also, Mr. Davis. Is the one coming from Mr. Newcomb?
Well, the report is coming to us. It's a report to us. I mean, there really isn't any comment to make, because we don't have anything in front of us to know what, it's, we got to hear what their recommendations are. No decision obviously has been made.
Well, I meant to say one thing. The report definitely is lowering the 300 feet, and I'm saying to you, I don't care if it says 275 or 55. Okay. Stay with that 300.
I think we understand your position. We do. All right, Mr. Dwyer, you're up next. Mr. Libria, would you see if Mr. Good is in the hallway? Would you mind, please?
Or if he went home.
If we went home. Good evening, Mr. Dwyer. Welcome.
Good evening, Robert Dwyer, 80 Lions Court, Freehold Mapping, Howell Physical. I have a lot of thoughts jumbled in my head, so I'll try and make it quick and to the point. I have recently become more involved in the town, coming to the master plan meetings, council meetings, watching Channel 77, which I happen to enjoy. And I'm very intrigued by the process, and I'm frankly disturbed by the recall effort that's going on. And I'm not going to put a negative spin on this, because I think it's been actually a positive meeting. Excuse me. Mainly with this new manager who you introduced. I'm a bit of a sap, and it was actually pretty refreshing and nice to hear these positive comments, because I'm a glass half full guy. So getting to the point, I have a great respect for Mayor DeBella and all five of you that sit up there. And in coming to these meetings, I've stayed till 12 o'clock, 12:30, 1 o'clock, 1:30 on certain occasions. I have a great respect how you open it to the public and extend that time. And really, that's what government's supposed to be about, listening to the people. That's what people preach when they run, and I think you're all doing it. I'm not a good public speaker, so bear with me.
You're doing fine.
But my point is, I see the sacrifice that you go through. I mean, I could sit in the back here for 3 hours with a cup of coffee, and I have the luxury of daydreaming. I have the luxury the next night to go home and stay home and watch the Knicks, which may be worse than what you guys have to do to prepare for the next meeting. But, just seeing the hours you put in here and imagining the hours you put in to get prepared to come here is quite an accomplishment. So in closing, with all that sacrifice and knowledge and intelligence that you guys all portray, I think along with that comes respect that you should get, and you do get by many people. This recall, in my opinion, is, I won't expand on it too much. I just think it's ridiculous. And with the respect that you should get, I know you open yourself up to criticism when you sit up there. And if you were to do a phenomenal job historically, you'd still have 30 to 40% of the people disagreeing with what you're doing. And that's a tough position to be in. So in closing, I would just say that I give you my gratitude, my support, Mr. Mayor and the entire council. I'll throw that blanket over all of you. I think you're doing a great job. And whatever you may need to squash this recall, I think it's discouraging and puts a bad light on the town. And there's too many good things going on, for that to be the case. So I just wanted to commend you all on your time and effort, and again, give my gratitude.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Dyer. That means a great deal to me personally. Thank you. Yeah, I know. And for you to have sat here all this while with your patience to be heard, that means a lot. So thank you for your comments.
Is Mr. Good here?
I think Mr. Good, last call.
He said he was
Okay,
here.
I think he may have had he kind of looked down. He may be on a first aid call for all we know. He kind of jumped up abruptly. Mr. Davis, is there anything else that we need to tend to this evening, sir?
Yeah, just a reminder, I had submitted to council, I guess several weeks ago now, fee schedule boilerplate form for your review. Remember we talked, I submitted the fee, we were looking at reevaluating our fees.
Yes.
And you got individual reports, you were looking for a spreadsheet. So we submitted the spreadsheet to you for your review to see if you had any comments, recommendations, or if it satisfied what you were looking for. Before we went through the effort of transferring all the data, we wanted to make sure the form itself was okay.
Yeah, I remember. I know what you're talking about. You're looking for, you want to get our comments?
Or input, or...
Did Mr. Walsh get that, or was that prior to his time? He did get it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm in the dark, I don't know where it is, but if you tell me I received it, I think I did.
No, it was recent.
I know we spoke a little bit about impact fees on November 29th, because I had it in my notes when I was reviewing them. I haven't seen nothing further on that. Is that what we're talking about here?
You got the original reports from the various departments, but it was too much to decipher, so you asked if it could be put on a spreadsheet.
Yep.
And what we did was submit a form of spreadsheet to you, and before we transposed the data, because that's going to take some doing, we wanted to make sure the form was okay.
Let's go back to the departments, because we're asking them to do other things.
Yeah, we're asking for additional information from the departments besides. So if you know what we'll do? We'll give you another copy.
Why don't you recirculate it, just in case? Why don't you recirculate it, and maybe in our packets?
We'll put it in the
this
packets.
week.
I don't want to wait till the 21st.
I'll be there tomorrow.
Okay, fine. Okay. That's fine. Saturday.
Yeah, I'm going to go over that right now. We've got a budget workshop on Saturday, this Saturday, the 11th. We'll begin at 8:30, and we will begin opening up our budget deliberations. We have another budget meeting tentatively scheduled for February the 18th, but there may be reason to have to postpone that.
Right.
So we can talk about that on the 11th.
We'll talk about that on Saturday.
And then our next regular meeting is Tuesday, February 21st, in these chambers at 7 p.m., and that will be our regular meeting. And I believe that that's it.
I think so.
Okay.
Have we figured out what night we're going to have to do the engineering? DPW?
Yeah, we'll determine that Saturday. We haven't scheduled a night meeting yet, and we'll talk about that Saturday. It'll be
Saturday
engineering and public works together.
So Saturday, among beginning the budget, we got to talk about when we can do the night meeting for engineering, the Department of Public Works, and then hopefully we can figure out what to do about the 18th. So we got to go over some scheduling items.
Perhaps we should schedule engineering and DPW on our participation night.
Yeah, it's a possibility.
For what?
Well, there is none this month, though.
No, she's
that's
talking
right.
March. Oh, there isn't one this month.
That's right, February
Okay.
14th.
Well, look, we don't even have state aid figures yet, so, I mean, I don't know that it's urgent that we don't do it in the mid part of March. All right, so we have our house cleaning items. Just as an aside, for the benefit of the council, Mr. Gannon gave to me the final copy of our petition to the Commissioner of Education on the Freehold Regional Board of Education matter. I signed that today in my office, and Mr. Gannon is going to submit that tomorrow as our formal appeal, and I think that's it. Anything else, Mr. Davis?
No, sir.
Okay, hearing, council members, any other comments?
Next Tuesday, we actually have a night off for all the lovebirds of Howell to spend with their couple, their partner, I mean, rather than actually coming here or watching us on Channel 77.
Yes.
That's a nice thing, actually.
We'll be here bright and early Saturday morning. Okay, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Mayor.
Yeah.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Safe ride home, everybody. Have a good night.
I'll have some...